All right, before we go to the next item, item number 22, I just want to make mention that Supervisor Anderson has left as he is not feeling well. With that, we're going to go ahead and turn over to item number 22, Community Response and Recovery, Strengthening Our Regional Capabilities in the 4 Phases of Emergency Management. So, thank you. We're going to go public comment, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 14 requests to speak on this item, 5 in person and 9 requesting to speak by phone. Also note for the record that we did not receive any e-comments on this item. For any individuals that requested to speak on item 22 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. And pursuant to the board's rules of procedure, because there are 10 or more speakers on this item, the speaking time will be limited to 1 minute each. So I'll ask you to keep your comments to 1 minute. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with those in favor of this item. As the name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. We'll be calling you in groups of 3, so I'll ask you to listen for your name. I'd like to invite forward first Dr. Critical Truth Bay, followed by Juan Cruz. Not seeing any movement, I'll go ahead and call the speakers in opposition: Mark, Catherine Rhodes, and allegedly Audra. If I called your name, please come forward. You'll have 1 minute to address the board, and I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Hello, Catherine Rhodes, and what I want to talk about is CERT. In the city of San Diego, we're not allowed to go to CERT programs and get CERT certified. City staff can, but city people that live in the city can't. And then when I would go to county staff and say, can I just do your CERT program since, you guys should fund it because it's emergency services and emergency stuff is things to do with the county? Your staff said, no, I'm not allowed to do CERT programs. I have to go through the city of San Diego. And I said, well, again, what they do is they put it in their budget that they're going to do this through the fire department, the classes for CERT. And then they cancel, and then you sign up for the classes, and then they cancel it year after year after year. So I would say even do an audit of how many actual citizens in the city of San Diego get to be CERT certified compared to residents in the county of San Diego. I think this is something that you should do for all of us and just not limit it to the city of San Diego anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Mark. Preparedness. This is pretty absurd considering that I actually told you guys a plan for $24 million, literally, to have 12,000 rooms 3D printed. You could use them along the border. That serve a double purpose of securing the border. And for another 24 altogether, you could give them each a 2,600 watt scooter. So you wouldn't have to worry about jamming up the mobility hubs. Instead, Todd Gloria is spending $840 million. So he's only about $800 million over budget. This is criminal. The guy who's leasing the building to our city, he's going to pay off his building 4 times, literally. It was $13 million for him. This is all a total scam, and 1 minute is not long enough. This is unreasonable according to the Brown Act.
So just a reminder, we are on item number 22, community response and recovery, strengthening our regional capabilities for 4 phases of emergency management.
Yes, and I told you, yes, and I wasn't off topic.
We got a lot of things to do.
Next speaker, please.
My person uses the name Audra. So again, on paper it looks good when you're saying that you're going to, strengthen our regional capabilities in the 4 phases of emergency management, when we've already failed miserably at making sure that anytime an emergency happens, that people are being taken care of and that things are going the way that it should. It's very sad to see that, we do things in efforts of talking about it and saying that we're going to do this, but the proof is in your actions of, look at what's happening with the storm victims still. They're still trying to recover and get their lives back. But it's a very slow, very, very slow pace. And it's sad that we get into the paperwork and doing the minutia of this kind of stuff as opposed to actually really helping people. So the hope is that one day you'll realize what you're doing isn't right.
Thank you. A final call for Critical Truth Bay and Juan Cruz. Not seeing any movement in the chamber. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. We'll start with our first caller.
On number 22, I think you're putting the cart before the horse on this one. Recommendation 1 is to solicit community input, but then you ask for various actions. Shoring up the funding, central fiduciary to coordinate the distribution of relief funds, even setting up 2 new bureaucracies, which might not even be wanted or needed. The board letter says the board received a list of 70 recommendations, 30 already implemented and 40 still outstanding. This letter has 8 recommendations. Are there 32 others, or were they combined in some way? copy of the recommendation should have been attached with the completed ones checked off. This crazy proposal needs to be rejected. Another half-baked idea.
Thank you. Now hear from the individual in person. Ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Hi, my name is Dr. Critical Truth Bay. I'm a policy analyst on a U.S. level. I actually work with Shabak Altruistic Inc., Dr. Nieta Carroll, who's been servicing domestic violence, human trafficking victims for over 30 years. So my question is, how is San Diego fixing the emergency preparedness department, starting with the continuum of care? It's a hot mess, just like LASA. It's no different. Ms. Tammy Kohler, the budget for RTF, $330,000, if I'm not mistaken, not even close to the millions. How are we solving anything when it comes to lack of funding? So I just wanted to find out exactly where the federal, state funding is coming to San Diego County, how it's being regulated, and how it's being distributed, because the community is not getting taken care of. And nice to see you, Ms. Montgomery Stepp, Reparations Task Force.
Thank you. We'll now return to the individuals that request to speak by phone.
Consuelo, in response to what the woman just asked for her questions regarding the lack of funding, we live in abundance, okay? There's a lot of funding. Unfortunately, it's not going to the right places and for the right purposes. Bottom line is that this board, no matter who you know on it, does not work for the people. They're just the puppets. Okay, back to 22. We're on 22, right? Yes, 22?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to just speak on 22. Okay, got it. Thank you. And with that being said, yep, I'm just going to repeat what Paul the Bull just mentioned regarding putting the cart before the horse in this crazy proposal. Gosh, we totally need to reject it, just like the person who proposed it. Let's see, recommendations. One is to solicit community.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Vargas and members of the board. This is Jesse Robas calling in to express my strong support for item 22, community response and recovery. Before I begin, I want to thank Chairwoman Vargas, Supervisor Montgomery Stepp, Supervisor Anderson, Supervisor Desmond, Supervisor Lawson-Reamer for your swift operational response following the January storms and for your continued support of fire districts, including the San Miguel Consolidated Fire Protection District. It is essential that the county remains committed to equitable support for special districts, which are integral to maintaining a diversified and resilient fire and EMS network. A well-supported system of special districts strengthens the regional emergency response capabilities and ensures that communities have the resources needed to respond effectively to disasters. While I serve as elected representative for La Presa and Spring Valley, two communities severely impacted by the January floods and still in urgent need of assistance, I want to clarify that my statement here today reflects my personal perspective in this role and does not represent the official positions of the district or the Spring Valley Community Planning Group. Having worked directly at the local assistance center and the disaster recovery centers, I witnessed significant gaps in resource management and long-term recovery efforts that must be addressed to improve.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
It's truth regarding emergencies or faux emergencies. The county already proved in 2020 that it is incapable of properly responding to anything. The county has also failed to properly respond to the wild arsonists roaming the lands, along with illegal migrants setting fires at the southern border. Seeing that the county considers behavioral health a category needed within a disaster situation, that shows that priorities are still misplaced. The CBOs who so often fight for county tax dollars need to be highly vetted on their past work or lack thereof. I also would not want to see them used for government propaganda purposes like what happened in 2020. Private organizations should only communicate disaster response information on how to find help. What would transportation consist of exactly? A county van pool, public transit passes? In some disaster scenarios, cars, public transit, gas, and/or electricity may not even be accessible or available. What would housing consist of? More hotels without guaranteed time frames? Let's be real, the shelters of today that are being used for the homeless were originally only for disaster response. For food, is the county going to stock up on MREs? And FEMA? No. Don't include...
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hello, my name is Juan Cruz, and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to speak. I am a Mount Hope resident, and I am a long life Mount Hope resident, and I think that I agree with this because January 22nd was a big day for San Diego, and it showed us that we have a lot of strengths, and we did very well as a county, but there's areas of improvement, right? Like everything, like just growth. And I think that's the key for our long-term success as a county, to have some strengthening in our capabilities of emergency management. I think we can do better in that area for long-term sustainability, thinking maybe 15 to 25 years away. If you look at it, it's not too far away. But I'm all very thankful for this opportunity to speak on that. I think that it's very necessary for us for our growth and our development. County is.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
So I wanted to make sure when I talk about this issue, I wanted to remind folks that the Office of Emergency Services is really the entity within the County of San Diego that coordinates the overall county response to disasters. And OAS is responsible for alerting and notifying appropriate agencies with disaster strikes, coordinating all agencies that respond, ensuring resources are available and mobilized in times of disasters, and it goes on. And then OES staff is the Operational Area Emergency Operations Center, a central facility which provides regional coordination, emergency response, and also acts as part of the Unified Disaster Council. And I happen to be the chair of it during this time, so whoever the chair is gets to work with them directly. So first, let me just say thank you for all of the work that all of you have done, particularly the work that took place this January. We've actually had, I don't want to jinx myself, because we have had many disasters in the last 4 years that I've been here, from my role as vice chair when we were, from COVID all the way to hurricanes and 100-year floods. It's real, the impacts that we have had. And so I want to say thank you to the team for being able to step up and do the work. But I wanted to make sure that we introduce this particular initiative today, because I really wanted to highlight the importance of the community component of it. And first, I also want to say thank you to Supervisor Montgomery Stepp for her partnership, leadership, and all the work that she did through the January floods. And I also want to highlight our interim CAO at the time, Sarah Agassi, and because of her leadership and some of the recommendations that she had as we responded to the floods as well. And of course, the rest of this team. But I think, following our board direction from January 30th, the staff prepared a report that lays out the steps what the county needed to take to strengthen our regional emergency capabilities. And the public safety group has done a great job in creating a comprehensive list of recommendations to be better prepared for future emergencies. Like I said, I wanted to bring this item to the board today and get an opportunity to also get community input so that staff can implement recommendations, and we can make sure that, as always, community comes first. That we continue to partner with community-based organizations in future emergencies. And I think everybody knows that on January 22nd, when the region was experiencing a 1,000-year storm that caused widespread flooding and damage, we all saw it and lived through it, and our streets turned into rivers of debris and houses flooded with up to 5 feet of water. It resulted in $30.8 million in verified damages, and mostly the communities that had been for years underinvested. These were communities that for so many decades have suffered through so many other things. And so as communities continue to work towards recovery, we have to face the reality that climate change is real, and we continue to face emergencies like we did last year. And so it's important that the county continues to strengthen our emergency preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. And then also, I want to make sure that we're working closely, like I said, with philanthropy, community-based organizations, and stakeholders. One of the things that I think was very real in this component is that I think there is the expectation of what the folks outside of the community want us to do, and then the limits that at times we had because of the rules and regulations, either by federal government or state government. And so I think as we're gathering this information, as we're making these recommendations, I want us to work really closely with our government affairs team so that we can continue to put pressure so that if laws need to be changed, that we do that, right? I know that with FEMA, we've done that. We've gone in and we've said we need to make sure that some of those funds come into our communities, not just for the immediate situation that they're faced with the long-term recovery. And the community component is still something I think that needs a lot of work from the federal side, but also to make sure that we also understand that it's part of the work that we need to be collaborating, coordinating as we're moving forward and identifying where else we can get resources. And so I'm grateful for all the folks that spoke up today, but I know that many organizations have been part of this process. And so with that, I would like to make a motion to approve this item. And again, really thank all of our teams for everything that they've done. And I know there's a lot of things in motion already, but I want to make sure that as a board, we know that this is a priority for us as we move forward. Thank you. Supervisor Montgomery-Stepp.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Vargas, for your partnership and leadership around this issue and us looking toward the future, because we know that we have to plan for these types of disasters. They've been ongoing for the last several years. So in different forms, but still we need to make sure that we are providing disaster relief that is easier and not making it harder for our residents. So thank you for your leadership. And I have more comments on the next item, but I will second this motion.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think obviously this is incredibly important, and I appreciate you taking initiative. I know we had a memo come back from staff and just taking initiative to get us moving on implementing some of the recommendations in the memo. I felt like it would be helpful for me and probably for the public to just kind of get refreshed on what was included in that memo, the kind of initial analysis and then the update that came back. And I know that staff was able to move forward with 40 of the 70 recommendations. So first of all, commending you all for having 70 recommendations and then moving forward with 40 of them. So that's quite something. I would appreciate just a high-level update on what those recommendations were and kind of the status of what you've been able to move forward already.
Absolutely, and thank you, Vice Chair and Chairwoman Vargas and members of the board. And with that memo, when we reported back on the recommendations that did not require board action, and we began implementing some of those recommendations. But there are also recommendations that require either board action or additional resources. And so we began moving forward with some of those recommendations that needed additional resources. And we're going to lean on the board to come back to us with any additional board direction or return to you if we were ready to move forward with items that needed additional board direction. But I do have Jeff Toney, who's our new our director of the Office of Emergency Services, and he can run down the brief that we briefed the board offices to give you an update on the memo.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas, for bringing this item, and Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. I can provide a brief high-level overview. We've briefed some of your staff on just the high points of our analysis of the original June 13th memo. Andrew sent a memo back on September 26th with OES feedback on all 70 recommendations. Again, a lot that we're already implementing, some that will require some additional staffing and or resources to carry out. But there were four main themes in the original memo: readiness and training, public information, community resources, and increased capacity building and coordination with volunteers and community-based organizations. I'll touch on readiness and training first. Our training and exercise branch is basically one staff in our office. He does a great job, but responsible for coordinating 4 exercises for our staff, conducting regional exercises with all partners across the county region. We will be developing a multi-year training and exercise plan, and we can do that through the Unified Disaster Council. That is a great body that we have here locally with the Joint Powers Agreement with the county and all 18 cities. It's something unique to the county that's worked really well in terms of regional planning and decision making. And then with the January flooding, we utilized 300 disaster service workers, county employees going out and about, serving in various roles throughout the response. That's a program that we hope to build upon. We've got categories of work that county employees can perform, including call center operators, helping with animal services, shelter workers, EOC responders, things like that. I want to really make that more robust and more training for our county employees there. Touching on public information, we have a regional public information officers group that we utilize during the response, but I'd like to utilize that before disasters, during, and after disasters. This is city jurisdiction, special districts, and county public information officers, daily calls, daily coordination to make sure that one message, unified message, can go out. I'd like to see more translated documents and pre-scripted messages for the public. We have a lot of languages spoken throughout the county, so I would like to work with county communications on that initiative. And then we are in the process of redesigning our website and our emergency app on the phone to make it more user-friendly and update the content there. For community resources, one thing that's benefited us in previous disasters is as-needed emergency contracts. We have contracts in place with, for instance, MTS and North County Transit District for transportation. I'd like to increase the number and scope of those contracts. Food vendors, for one. We're pursuing an Uber Eats contract. We did utilize that during the response. Housing providers, mental health services, the more as-needed contracts that we can tap in, working with DPC to do this, I think the better position will be for the future. Jurisdictional mutual aid agreements. We have some in place right now. We have mutual aid agreements with all 18 cities when it comes to utilization of our alert and warning system. We have agreements with hazardous materials response with our HURT teams. But perhaps we can explore others, perhaps some Department of Public Works opportunities. There is Emergency Managers Mutual Aid Program that exists. If a city needs help in their Emergency Operations Center, we can lend staff and vice versa, but I think there's other opportunities to explore with more agreements. And lastly, coordination with volunteers and CBOs. During the floods, I do think there was a gap. I do think there was a gap in visibility, knowing what the CBOs were doing on the ground. We stood up 2 congregate shelters in conjunction with the city of San Diego, and we were surprised to see the population of those shelters being so low at the time. But all these efforts were going on and funding was being used. We had the YMCA involved, Chicana Federation, et cetera, County Office of Education, on the ground doing great work, providing temporary lodging, hotel vouchers. And then as that need became more evident, we stood up the Emergency Temporary Lodging Program for the remainder of the time. So engaging these CBOs and volunteers early, more training, that was just that effort was remarkable in the work that they did. It was just outside of the structure of OES and traditionally. So I think we need to work to bridge those gaps, bring them into preparedness, response, and recovery. And I think there's a great opportunity working with HHSA in particular, the Live Well sectors, homeless solutions and equitable communities. They're already doing amazing work with a lot of these organizations. So the more partnerships we can develop working in conjunction with HHSA, I think will benefit us greatly. And lastly, just increase the outreach and training opportunities, not just for first responders, but for community groups, for the community emergency response teams. We can really tap in. It's a whole community approach. It's not government. It's volunteers. It's community-based organizations, all working in tandem. And so I hope to move forward with a lot of this work. I think it's needed. Disasters are becoming more and more common, bigger, larger, longer, more complex. So the more we do now to strengthen our capabilities, I think it will serve us well.
Yeah, I think the one piece as we were, and the more we talk about it, the more ideas come out. But I think also trainings for not only the county supervisors and other elected officials. I know that organizations like National Association of Latino Elected Officials does a lot of briefings on emergency preparedness, et cetera. But as things are changing, I think it's very different when you are a school board member, when you're a city council member, when you're a supervisor. What is under your realm? How do we work together? I think that's extremely important. I think all of us have really strong relationships with our community, with other elected officials, because we've worked really well together for so long. But now that you have term limits on board of supervisors and city councils, in the past, there would be a supervisor that would sit here for 25 years. That's not the case anymore, right? And so I think it's important that people are trained and that they get information. I know how to do a state of emergency because I come from that world, but doesn't mean that the next, whoever, like people who serve on these capacities, you don't automatically know all that information. So I think it's important to train all of us so that we have the same information. And are we able to move money? What are the things that we can do really quickly when we need to react on behalf of our communities? I think that's another part. And as listening to you, I hope that one of the things that comes about from all of this is maybe some type of conference where we bring everybody together to have a conversation of how do we prepare for future ones. I mean, because if you think about the work that all of you are doing, we just set up an incident command for what's happening in Tijuana River Valley around air pollution and the sewage. So you all are working on emergency preparedness and response all the time beyond what people usually only see, which is fires and different climate impacts. So I want to make sure that folks continue to know all the great work that you're doing on the ground every day. So thank you for that. All right, we have a motion and a second and no additional comments. Please vote. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I just, thank you. I wanted to thank you all for the work. I think this is great. And I actually will be it will be really helpful for you all to come back with some kind of specifics based on what the chairwoman has proposed. And I know we're not going to be able to do everything overnight, right? Like, that's clear. But, what does it look like next year, the year after? Given that we clearly have a fiscally constrained environment, we have other priorities to balance. We know we can't do everything, but doing the best we can. So, thank you.
And if I could real quick, I just wanted to acknowledge that point and just say through the operational planning process and through our 5-year forecasting process, specifically with the staffing of the recovery division and the community division, we're going to be phasing those in over the next few years. So you'll be seeing that throughout those budget presentations.
Thank you.
All right, and let's ask for more money from the federal government. With that, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
Okay. Thank you so much for everything. The next item on the agenda is a request for the San Diego County Board of Supervisors to authorize an audit of Arbor at ENT LLC DBA Equus Workforce Solutions. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas, and thank you to the rest of my colleagues for considering this item. I also want to take a moment to thank community members who came forward and talked to my office to express their concerns about Equus services for flood survivors, some of whom I'm sure you will hear from today. On January 22nd, 2024, we experienced the heaviest rainfall in a single day in over 100 years in San Diego County. And as one would expect, the floods inflicted devastating and disproportionate impacts on San Diego County's most vulnerable and impoverished communities across southeastern San Diego and in the unincorporated areas of our county. This natural disaster ultimately led to thousands of our residents being displaced from their homes. In an effort to provide aid as quickly as possible, the board voted on January 30th, 2024 to authorize an amendment to the county's existing contract with Equus to provide temporary non-congregate shelter and case management services to individuals and families impacted by the floods. We ultimately went with this amendment strategy as it allowed the county to provide aid to these flood survivors more quickly than the typical procurement process for a new service provider, which would have taken months. Now, while we appreciate Equus' efforts to provide these services to our residents, we have since heard from many community members that Equus services were lacking. Flood survivors have reported frustration with disorganization, including being sent to hotels that had been shut down, as well as being repeatedly asked for the same personal information that had already been provided. This raised concerns that individuals' personal information was not being properly collected and secured. The accountability of government and our contractors is very important. And this is particularly the case when it comes to how we engage with and serve communities that have experienced decades of inadequate community and infrastructure investment, which left them vulnerable to the devastation from this 100-year rainstorm. The item that I've brought forward today provides an opportunity to address the community's concerns and ensure accountability for these flood survivors. The item directs the auditor and controller to perform an audit of Arbor E&T LLC, doing business as Equus Workforce Solutions related to the Emergency Temporary Lodging Program, and to report back to the Board of Supervisors within 120 days. The audit will include, if passed today, but not be limited to, a detailed analysis of Equus' actual expenditures versus contracted amounts, the number of households provided with temporary lodging, including their lengths of stay, an explanation of where each household went when their temporary stay ended or why they had to leave their temporary shelter, the types of case management services provided to the households, the number of households provided with case management services, a detailed analysis of Equus data security as it relates to the personal information provided by the households, the procedure used by Equus to address and try to resolve complaints made by the households, and the number and types of complaints made by the households. In addition to helping the county respond to community concerns, this audit will also allow the board to determine whether public funds were properly used by Equus and if any improvements can be made so the County of San Diego is better prepared for future emergency situations or natural disasters. And we also discussed that in the last item as well. Thank you again to my colleagues for consideration of this item, and I will turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and
I'm happy to make a motion now. I can wait as well.
Okay. Open up for public comment.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 17 requests to speak on this item, 10 in person and 7 requesting to speak by phone. Also note that we received 1 e-comment in favor. Any individuals that requested to speak on item 23 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with those in favor of this item. As your name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. I'll be calling you groups of 3, so I'll ask you to please listen for your name. And since we have 10 or more speakers on this item, speaking time will be limited to 1 minute per person, so please keep your comments to 1 minute. I'd like to invite forward Mark, Jarrell Howard, and Robert Sanders. I've called your name. Please come forward. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
How long do we have? 1 or 2 minutes?
1 minute.
Mark, that's absurd, 1 minute. Okay, first of all, it wasn't the rainiest day. I've been here my whole life. I've definitely seen rainier days. But I'm sure they're suing you for that they didn't have proper drainage. The whole idea of Equus, even if it had worked perfectly, the whole thing is a total scam. Like I said before, I've told you how for very little, within 2 years, you could have had all the homeless people in 3D printed houses and more 3D printed places ready, in fact, because they would slowly, over a year, reintegrate back into society. You'd have bank accounts for them, get them jobs. It would have actually helped solve the problem. Nothing can totally solve it, of course, unless you get rid of inflation, stop the Federal Reserve. But you're just not even trying to solve the problem. And this is just a joke, like Equus. Even if you had done the contract correctly, if they had done it correctly, it's a scam.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite 3 additional speakers in favor: Marcela Ralick, Carla Gomez, and Clarisa Marin. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the chair as well as the board, Monica Montgomery Stepp. My name is Robert Sanders. I'm the political and community coordinator with SEIU Local 221. I am here on behalf of our members who live in the community and that was impacted by this tragedy. Earlier this year, our county was hit with record rainfall, and we all know people, especially in communities of color and vulnerable, low-income areas who have severely affected by flooding. In response, the county authorized the use of an existing contract with Equus to provide temporary shelter and case services as quick solutions to help. However, we know outsourcing carries significant risks. Concerns have been raised about the services Equus provide, and many are saying the efforts were disorganized, lacked clear communication, and didn't meet the same high data security standards that we use at the county. That's why we support an audit of Equus performance in the use of our public funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Buenas tardes, soy Marcela. Por favor, les vengo a agradecer que gracias por lo que nos ayudó con lo que...
Let her list. Yeah, I just... Okay. Va a necesitar que yo le ayude.
Ella le va a ayudar, ella va a hacer la traducción, usted habla en español y ella la traduce y lo responde en inglés y tiene exactamente 2 minutos porque como va a hablar en inglés y en español, ¿ok?
¿Está bien? Ahora comienza.
Sí. Buenas tardes.
Yes, good afternoon.
Vengo a agradecer que gracias por la ayuda de ustedes que nos ayudaron cuanto el 22 de enero.
And I'm here to really tell you that I'm grateful because of the help that you gave us on January the 22nd.
Aunque no fue culpa de ustedes, fue culpa de la ciudad no nos ayudó para nada.
Although it was not your fault, it was the city's fault. However, the city did not help us at all.
Ahora lo que les voy a decir que ECO, la que nos ayudó, algunas personas los trató bien, a otras personas los trató mal.
Okay. However, the entity who helped us, ECO, they treated certain people well, but some other people they did not treat that well.
Y ahora lo que les digo que si nos podría hacer otra cosa ustedes, hablar con la ciudad, ¿qué va a ser, qué solución que nos puede dar para la próxima lluvia que ya pronto va a empezar?
So I'm here to ask you if you maybe can speak to the city because I want to know what they're going to do, what the solution is going to be, with the next season for the storm.
Como mi situación, el canal no han limpiado desde el 22 de enero, no le han tocado nada. Ya,
¿El 22?
Sí.
Okay. Like, for example, on the channel, that has not been touched, not since January the 22nd.
Y sí estamos preocupados nosotros porque hasta nos da gana de ir a limpiar, pero no sé qué podemos hacer porque es un trabajo grande.
Okay. So we're really, really worried about it. As a matter of fact, we have even been thinking about doing it by ourselves. But the thing is that it's a pretty, it's a lot of work.
Y sobre de la ayuda que nos dieron, según yo lo estoy escuchando, que están tratando que nos van a cobrar. Okay. No sé si así es.
However, the help that we already received, my understanding is that they're going to charge us for it, so I don't know what's going on with that.
Thank you.
No es justo.
Next speaker, please.
And it's not fair.
Sí.
Okay.
¿Su nombre? Carla Gómez.
Okay, my name is Carla Gómez.
Hola, buenas tardes.
And hello, good afternoon.
Saludos a todos. Ya es la tercera vez o cuarta vez que vengo y quiero agradecerles.
Okay, greetings to all of you. I think it's either my third or fourth time here, and I'm really grateful.
Yo fui una de las que me ayudó Equus. Efectivamente, sí nos ayudó, pero hubo un mes que estaba yo aterradora.
I did get help from Equus. They did help me. However, there was a month that I was terrified.
El último porque nos dejó de ayudar y yo no busqué ni nada porque yo iba a regresar a mi departamento que iba a estar en construcción.
Okay, so they stopped helping us, and what happened is that I panicked because I was going to go back to my apartment, but it was under construction.
Pero todavía no está listo y yo me desesperé y busqué otra opción, sí, más caro. Es cierto que me ayudaron estos 6 meses, pero ya otra vez cuando se acaben los 6 meses voy a pagar, ahora sí que más de lo que yo pagaba, pero sí.
So I did find another solution for 6 months. It was more expensive, and I'm trying to find a solution, and I'm going to go ahead and continue paying. However, it's a lot more what I'm going to have to pay.
Yes, ajá. Entonces yo sí pido, gracias por todo, pero sí exijo una auditoría porque nos pudieron haber tenido más tiempo en el hotel y yo me pude haber regresado a mi antiguo departamento, que eran 1,500, voy a pagar 600 de diferencia.
Okay, so what I'm asking if maybe you can have some type of an auditing, because I'm going to have to go back, to a new place, at the apartment, which is $1,500, which is $600 more than what I was paying before.
Sí, yo sé, tengo que trabajar, todo eso, pero tengo chance, pero sí nada más, sí va a ser un poquito complicado porque pues tengo mis hijos, empecé de cero, lo que nos dieron, uno tiene que liquidar deudas que siguen. Entonces, nomás para un ojito, por eso es que yo vengo a apoyar y a decir esto.
I can work and everything, but I have kids. I'm just asking for a lot of help. I'm trying to do it on my own, but, I just have the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite the remaining speakers in favor, Armin Harvey and Sandra Garcia. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Clarissa Marin, and I am coming in support. I just want to thank you for sitting with the community, listening to the concerns, and more importantly, touching on not just with the few that spoke, but the hundreds we've been speaking to, which is we're worried about the next cliff, right? So I think number 22 was great, and a lot of what we heard touched on the same concerns we've been expressing, for over 9 months now, so thank you. But there's another cliff coming because of the lack of data, because of the failures of the contractor that was given this contract. A lot of them were forced to have to scramble and sign leases that are going to end. Those 6 months of assistance are ending, December, January, February, and March. And we know that those household incomes are not even enough to cover the leases that they were forced to have to sign in order to get the assistance from the Housing Commission in the first place. So we're hoping that there could be some form of solution.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hey, my name is Armand Harvey, president and founder of Harvey Family Foundation. Haven't been up here in a very long time, but I want to speak to this item and thank you, Supervisor Monica Montgomery, for this. As you know, that we've had many issues with this company, and a lot of the residents, I'll let them speak on behalf of what they went through, because I can't speak for them. But a lot of us had made sacrifices to help these families. And I also thank you, Ms. Ebony, for listening to a lot of our cries, a lot of the help that we needed, as well as you, Supervisor Vargas. So I think both of these items is a testament that we have a long way to go, but we're stepping in the right direction. There's a lot of mistakes that we all can learn from and that we need to learn from. But I thank you guys for making those right steps in the right direction to really help a lot of us in the community and CBOs. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite the speakers in opposition, Catherine Rhodes and allegedly Audra. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Mi nombre es Sandra García.
Okay, my name is Sandra Garcia.
Gracias a Dios, ahorita no sé cómo estoy con ustedes para compartir mi historia que pasé.
Thank you, God. I don't really know how I'm doing here with you, so I can tell you my story and, what I went through.
Yo perdí a mi esposo durante la lluvia.
I lost my husband during the rains.
Trabajé por muchos años duro para el retiro de nosotros estar bien. Estuvimos hasta el día de enero.
Okay. Para el retiro
de nosotros los dos.
And then, many years went by, for our retirement and for both of us to be okay.
Y mi esposo pues murió durante el proceso este. de la lluvia.
And by my husband, however, he passed away, during the storms, when that was going on.
Mi casa quedó destruida, la mitad de la casa.
My house, it was destroyed. Half of it was destroyed.
Y yo fui persona que no fui elegible porque yo no estuve en el hotel.
Okay. However, and I was one of the persons that didn't meet the requirements because I was not staying at the hotel.
Porque verdaderamente mi situación, lo de mi esposo, mi familia estaba conmigo.
Okay. And honestly, it was because of what was going on with my husband, and my family was there with me.
Ahora estoy aquí por todos los neighbors y todo, que se abra su corazón de ustedes, de todos los que puedan.
Okay, but I'm here on behalf of all my neighbors and to see if we can open your hearts as much as we can.
Para todas las personas que en realidad no fuimos elegibles para ayuda.
And that would be for all of us, all the people that we didn't meet the requirements for the help.
Y muchas gracias, espero su corazón les abra para todos nosotros, no nomás para mí.
Okay.
Y gracias a Dios puedo estar hablando porque no podía hablar antes.
Okay, and thank you, God, for opening your hearts for all of us. I'm here for all of us here. And now I can speak because before I could not speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Hello, Catherine Rhodes, and of course I'm for it, and I made a mistake. So anyway, here's the 2021 iNews source report about the scathing SDSU report that said Equus, your county contractors, were unqualified to operate the COVID-19 hotels. Then it says the county awarded $30 million to Equus for these hotels during COVID-19. And they had unqualified company with poorly trained staff who forced residents to suffer long delays for much needed medication, who allowed for gaps in services that may have led to overdoses and suicide. So anyway, there's a 154-page SDSU report that maybe you could actually look at before you do as part of your audit and see how they messed up before, and then you guys just gave it to them again. I don't know why you gave somebody that did such bad work. So anyway, the solution, instead of one big, huge, giant contract, make small contracts like we did for the convention center so everybody could get a little piece of the pie, and we could do it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My person uses the name Audra, so it's sad because this is all due to your negligence, because you're getting in contracts with people that are knowingly negligent. But you guys love to do that, and then you want to audit them. You guys should be audited for all of your pretend mitigation. And the propaganda that you're spewing by saying this is a 1,000-year storm, this is cloud seeding. Cloud seeding is real, and it's happening. And it happened during, after, and before the storm. And people have lost everything. It's like, instead of acknowledging that this isn't your climate god happening, this is man-made weather warfare, it's going to continue. Storms are going to get worse because of man, because they are creating these. Whether or not you want to believe it, those are the facts. It's not dependent upon your belief. But these people are dependent upon you making sure that you're doing everything in your power to make sure this doesn't happen again. And it's your fault these contracts are in place.
Thank you. Final call for Jarrell Howard. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. We'll start with the first caller.
Horrible. Equus has been horrible and needs to be audited. It might be good enough for Kentucky where it's based, but its performance here was abysmal. Let me be clear. It is a rotten idea to contract with an out-of-state contractor for local relief efforts, which involves detailed and up-to-date knowledge of local conditions, which an out-of-state contractor cannot provide in an emergency. Or maybe the contractor has their own local emergencies. Apparently, while being serviced by Equus, a few families had to be totally disrupt their schedules and pack up or move several times. If even one such is substantiated, this should also be included in the audit. And the rainy season's coming. Who knows what it will bring? it is past time that we do an audit, which
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Consuelo. Gosh, such blind faith these people have in this local government. So, here we go, round two. The greedy snakes turning on each other with these requests of audit. The city, county, to the woman, the city, el ciudad, el condado, igual diferencia, desastre, their disaster. Y también, sorry, my Spanish is horrible, but no eres el dinero del gobierno, era el dinero de nosotros. Nosotros, la gente, es la dinero de nosotros que está ayudando. Maybe that's not a word, ayudando, is it? Anyways, it's the people helping the people. That's what it's always been about. Stop begging. Stop looking for this government for any help, for any answers, because they're not there to serve us.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hey, Gambler here. How you guys doing? You know, the flooding was done because of negligence. You guys didn't do what you guys were paid to do, causing a problem that you guys are looking for money for. I know that, you know, you guys don't really want to solve the problem, and half the shit that you guys say is a bunch of crap because I don't see any of you guys promoting a guy named Julian Brown. Julian Brown just recently turned plastic into water, drinkable water. The byproduct of plastic is graphene. Graphene could be used to make your lithium batteries charge 10 times faster. But you guys don't want to go ahead and address this problem because this guy is quite literally invented, and he's 19 years old, African American, and Monica refuses to acknowledge his...
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Truth, Nora, this was not climate change. This was negligence. Why is there an audit of how Equus mismanaged tax dollars, but no audit of how SBCS mismanaged tax dollars? Why should anyone believe there will be justice in this case if there was no justice in that case? But interesting that you supervisors chose Equus in January when only 1 month later, the U.S. Department of Labor found that Equus violated child labor laws. Equus paid a lousy $16,000 fee. By 2021, the county paid Equus $342 million, partly for those pointless COVID hotels. That SDSU study found Equus were unqualified to run the program and staff weren't trained. There was even a suicide in their hotels that went unnoticed for 5 days. There's systemic stupidity and deception with those who've been running the county the last 4 years. Jim said he wanted a full account of what the county paid versus the city of San Diego. Where is that report? To quote Jim, I feel we're rewarding negligence and incompetence. I demand a full audit of all the spending the county has done with Equus since 2010. You guys chose Equus year after.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. Supervisor, I'm happy to second the motion, and I appreciate you bringing this item forward. I think that we heard loud and clear from so many in the community how many challenges people have had, and it still breaks my heart when I hear folks who were not able to apply or didn't meet the requirements. Again, I think that goes back to the other item where we need to make sure that as we're learning this information, we can share it with our federal government and our state government so that we can do a better job. Because all stories are different, and I know that in so many cases, so many folks ended up staying with family members because it was much more convenient than staying in a hotel as well. So there's a lot of work that we need to do in our procurement process and making sure that we're adequately reaching out to locally based community organizations to partner with them. And so again, thank you, Supervisor, for bringing this forward, and I'm happy to support this. And thank you to all the community members that participated today. Oh, Supervisor Desmond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Yeah, I just want to thank Supervisor Montgomery Stepp for bringing this item forward. It's important, I think, to hold our contractors accountable for the work they did. However, this is all caused by the city of San Diego and not keeping up their infrastructure or cleaning out the drainage ditch as they should have been doing. So, especially because the taxpayers are footing this bill, I do think this audit's necessary. So I appreciate Supervisor Montgomery Stepp for bringing it forward.
Okay, with that, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask, can you go ahead and read the titles moving forward, because my voice is just leaving me now again, so.
Happy to do that. Thank you. The next item for the board's discussion is item 24, reducing gun violence through a responsible firearm procurement ordinance. On behalf of the chairwoman, we'll begin with the public comment on this item. We have 11 requests to speak, 6 in person and 5 requesting to speak by phone. Also note that we received 91 e-comments, 90 in favor and 1 in opposition. For any individuals that requested to speak on item 24 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with those in favor of this item. As your name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. You'll have 1 minute to address the board since we have 10 or more speakers on this item. I'd like to invite forward Roseanne Sharp, Therese Heimer, and Cornelius Bowser. If I've called your name, please come forward. And I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
My name is Roseanne Sharp, founder of Never Again CA and a resident of San Diego County. I want to thank the board for Board of Supervisors for their leadership on gun violence prevention. Chairwoman Vargas has been a strong supporter for many years. Supervisor Lawson-Remer has worked tirelessly to set the best standards for the county on preventing gun violence. And Supervisor Montgomery Stepp knows firsthand how important these standards are for preserving and protecting our lives of our citizens. When Brady issued its report on combating crime guns, focused on the key findings were 90% of guns recovered in crimes are traced back to sales of just 5% of gun dealers who had firearm violations. This pending act is an opportunity to reduce gun violence by penalizing the violators on the supply side. This act is not burdensome. Rather, it financially rewards law-abiding firearm dealers and uses the purchasing power of firearms to.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I am Therese Heimer, speaking on behalf of San Diegans for Gun Violence Prevention and Brady United, a member of our coalition. Just as a health department would not buy from medical businesses that violate health codes, law enforcement should not spend taxpayer dollars with firearm dealers that violate gun laws. Unfortunately, without a strong vetting process, the county can unknowingly purchase from dealers with multiple citations. From the incomplete records we have access to, the county has purchased from at least one such vendor in the past. The county made a purchase from LC Action, which 3 times faced a warning conference from the ATF, something only 2.5% of dealers receive. It had serious repeat violations, including failures related to background checks and inventory records. It had 63 crime guns traced back to it from 2021 to 23. Vendors should follow the laws to prevent gun trafficking, theft, and crime, and to protect our children from gun violence. Please vote yes.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite the speakers in opposition, Mark, Oliver Twist, and allegedly Audra. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Good morning, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Cornelius Bowser, and I stand before you as a man who has lived in the shadows of gun violence, a reality that has stolen too many lives in our community. I once believed that carrying a weapon would bring me safety and respect, only to learn that it actually led to fear and loss. I have seen the devastation firsthand, friends lost to violence, families torn apart, and futures erased in the blink of an eye. Today, I urge you to support the county ordinance aimed at holding firearm vendors accountable. This is not just about regulations, it's about creating a culture of responsibility and respect for the life in our neighborhood. By ensuring that vendors comply with stringent safety measures, we can prevent gun violence from ending up in the hands of those who would use them to harm. This ordinance is a critical tool in our fight against gun violence, but it is also only a powerful tool as collectively. So I urge you to vote and support this. We deserve a brighter and safer future.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mark, as we know, the majority of this board doesn't want any Americans to have good rifles, which is absurd. So this is just a ploy. There's already lots of restrictions. They have to do background checks, et cetera. All that already exists. All this is doing is threatening them, basically saying, if you don't follow every rule we come up with from now on, you won't get the big contracts for your company that sells guns or arms. And of course, they all want the big contracts for their business, which I'm sure the city is one of the greatest. So it's just a strong arm tactic. I know you guys are completely for disarming America, which is un-American and completely absurd. There's about 170 million citizens that have good rifles, and 2 million people in our military, Monica, 2 million. So think about that. What do you think's keeping people from invading us, like the cartel, who I heard recently China is giving missiles to, and they've already got machine guns and stuff. They don't obey the law. It's the people that would stop an invasion.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Oliver Twist here, and I am in opposition to this item, not so much about gun rights or gun violence or any of that, but what I see this as is more government tokenism. And I go back to your own board letter where it says here, San Diego County would be setting a higher standard for transparency and responsibility in its firearms procurement. Notice it doesn't say this will make you safer, this will stop violence. It's just to give the appearance of transparency. And again, that is tokenism that is a political talking point for the politicians, particularly in election season. What I really draw your attention to yet again is this ghost gun manufacturer from I think 2022. He was pled down from, I think it was 28 counts, 28 felonies to 1 felony. He got 1 year in jail and then 2 years probation. He's already out of the streets. He was released July 23. So please stop the tokenism.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My person uses the name Audra. Inch by inch by inch, you guys are encroaching on the people's rights and their freedom to bear arms. So this doesn't have anything to do about safety. It's more about control. And, people kill people. Guns don't. It's the people. And there are always going to be guns on the black market. People are always going to be able to get a ghost gun, which I recommend, because there's no need for the government to encroach on our constitutional God-given rights. Our rights don't come from you guys. And the more that you try and usurp them, it's very telling because, you do things on the surface again that looks good. It looks like you're trying to do something, but you've obviously been, procuring weapons from people that you supposedly shouldn't. But there are many weapons, and if you just go after these manufacturers, it's not going to stop any of the crimes that are taking place. In fact, we all need a gun. We should all have one, especially what's coming down the pipe and our nation being invaded. We need to be able to protect ourselves.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. We will begin with our first caller.
Pam. Number 24, no. I admit this item is confusing, and a public speaker from the previous meeting questioned the purpose and intent of this item. Per the item document, at least 90 California law enforcement agencies, including San Diego County, have purchased firearms from dealers with documented violations. Is there evidence of a current issue of which we, the people, should be concerned that guns are being purchased unlawfully by the county? If so, how has this been allowed to occur? At the last meeting, Supervisor Desmond commented there is no issue and voted no on this item. Under recommendations, number 1, CAO to develop a firearm procurement ordinance for board consideration. Really? Are there no policies and procedures currently in place? Where is the transparency to the people? A vote should be postponed on on this until this item is clarified for the public and evidence of any wrongdoing by this county in purchasing these guns is provided to the people. If the evidence confirms the county procures guns in accordance with the law, then there's no need for this agenda item. Tara, is this availed?
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller. Next caller is Paul DeBold. Your device might be muted. We'll come back to that caller.
Consuelo, I'm right here. Hold on. Anyways, sorry. Did you tell Paul DeBold you're going back to him?
Yes, we'll come back to Paul.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm sitting here looking at a picture from a woman in 1972. She's going back to you, and she's there, and she's fuck. Hold on, sorry, I didn't mean to say fuck. Who was wounded. She's there shooting from a gun from her fiance who was wounded in a battle against the British Army. Her wounded fiance survived after being transported by a car to a safe place, while his girlfriend clashed with British soldiers until she was killed. When the commander of the battalion of the English soldiers found out that they were fighting a woman, he ordered his soldiers not to touch her body.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller. Again, next caller is Paul DeBold. Your device might be muted. We'll come back to him.
Gambler here. You know, bad move. You know, trying to mess with people's guns and all that stuff. I have no issues with people owning guns. Matter of fact, I believe that more people should own them. Hell, all of you should own a gun to protect yourself. Not to cause harm on anyone. You could go ahead and take a look at how many guns saved people's lives. Saved events. But no, we don't want to go ahead and cover that. We want to cover the crazy people that it's only crazy because of our media. Because you guys want to go ahead and separate us. Put us into little tiny groups and say the other group is trying to go after each other. You're causing all this hate. So what happens when there are no guns, except for the bad guys, which the Venezuelan guys coming over, taking over hotel buildings? They have an arsenal with them, crossed across the border, but no, we're not allowed.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Truth more, Tara, wasting our tax dollars on more?
Sit up here, we can see her like all day long.
But curveball, why don't we talk about why this campaign item is back? That's because Nora decided to pull a Tara and skip out on the meeting. This board is an embarrassment to the county, and that's the real type of emotional violence that people should be concerned about. This item's reference to an LA Action Police Supply is still incorrect. It's supposed to say LC. Nobody can even be bothered to be accurate with Tara's theater. Nor I request that you use your censorship skills on Tara, because political theater is wasting our time. This item qualifies as repeated misuse of taxpayer funds. What is the responsible firearm procurement? Does that include Nora wasting $109,000 of our tax dollars on our personal armed security guards in August 2022? Or maybe the current contract with Invicta Allstate Security, where the standard security guys with CCWs get paid $81.90 an hour. Obviously, that's an example of how easy and quick procurement of firearms is essential for safety, especially for women. Terry, imagine the show.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
All about
Paul, you may have muted your device. We're not able to hear you. Paul, if you're still there, we're not able to hear you. And Chairwoman Vargas not hearing any communication with that caller. That concludes public comment on this item.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and have the Vice Chair introduce the item, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this item heard again today. I've been beating the drum on this for 4 years now, and it could not be more urgent to continue taking strong action against gun violence and protect families and children in our communities from firearm tragedies. I'm proud that over the last 4 years, we've promoted stricter gun safety laws, expanded background checks, expanded the use of red flag laws, taken on the ghost gun manufacturers, and today's item adds another tool to our toolkit here at the county, which is leveraging our county purchasing power to help keep our community safe. Every year, our county law enforcement agencies spend millions of dollars on firearms to carry out their duties to serve and protect our communities. Our county procurement team helps put out bids and signs contracts with firearm companies. This is necessary. But we need to make sure we are doing business with companies who are following the rules and avoid giving taxpayer money to bad actor gun dealers. United Against Gun Violence found that as many as 90 California law enforcement agencies have purchased firearms from dealers who are out of compliance with state and federal law. My colleague, Supervisor Desmond, said last meeting that this policy is a solution looking for a problem, but our county is one of those 90 agencies. We inadvertently awarded a contract to a gun dealer with over 40 violations of state and federal law. This is unacceptable, and we can do better. One really promising model was recently adopted by the City of San Diego. San Diego City Council member Marnie Von Wilpert and City Attorney Mara Elliott worked with our partners at Brady, Team Enough, Gifford, Safer California, and San Diegans for Gun Violence Prevention to enact groundbreaking legislation called the Ira Sharp Firearm Accountability Act in the City of San Diego. I am hopeful we can borrow this approach and bring it to the county to expand the impact of this innovative law. Like the city, I also hope to name our ordinance after Ira Sharp, an inspiring champion who worked tirelessly to make our community safer. His wife, Roseanne Sharp, and son, Andrew Sharp, are both here today. I look forward to working with the Sheriff's Office as we develop this county ordinance. It would be an honor to have my colleagues' support on this item, and with that, I'd like to make a motion.
I'm happy to second the motion. Supervisor Desmond?
Thank you. Well, this is the third time, I guess, this has been before us here. And I appreciate you pointing out, Supervisor Lawson-Remer, that this entity had 40 violations. That was over 29 years that these violations, we don't know if these violations are what they were. They're not listed out, how severe any of them were. But I guess the title, Reducing Gun Violence Through Responsible Firearm Procurement Ordinance. We already have a responsible firearm procurement ordinance. We already have. This is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I've never heard of any issues or any problems with our gun vendors. The county already requires vendors to be in compliance with all state and federal laws. We check for federal disbarment with all vendors before executing contracts. There's nothing here to fix. This is a solution looking for a problem that doesn't exist. I'll be voting no for the third time today.
Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Vargas. I want to thank our Vice Chair Lawson-Remer for bringing this item forward. I do support this policy, and I think that the county should make sure that it works with responsible firearm dealers. I don't think there's anything wrong with checking that and triple checking it if we have to. We should do everything possible to make sure that we direct county business only to responsible firearm dealers with a clean history of compliance with all state and federal laws. Adopting a responsible firearms procurement ordinance will provide firearms dealers with an additional incentive to act responsibly and ensure full compliance with state and federal laws, because their future sales to the county would be on the line if they fall short. We know that we're also hamstrung hamstrung, so to speak, as a local entity based on recent Supreme Court actions. But this is something that we can do, and I think that we should do it. It's a common sense policy that I support, and I look forward to reviewing what the CAO returns back to this board. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Vice Chair, for introducing this particular item on reducing gun violence through responsible firearm procurement. I think that as a board, we have an opportunity to really support initiatives that make a difference in the lives of so many. And so I think by implementing evidence-based changes and significantly reducing gun violence is critical for all of us. And if it takes a couple of times to bring it forth so that we can continue to push that, I'm happy to support it every time. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes with Supervisor Desmond voting no, all other supervisors who are present voting aye.
Thank you.
The next item for the board's discussion is item 26, entitled 2025 through 29 Consolidated Plan and Fiscal Year 25 through 26 Annual Plan Strategy Development for the Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnerships, Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, and Emergency Solutions Grant. We'll turn it over to county staff for the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Vargas and members of the board. The purpose of today's presentation is to receive community input and adopt the 2025 to 29 Consolidated Plan Strategy. The Consolidated Plan Strategy includes new 5-year goals and serves as a guiding document to prioritize funding. The new strategy will be applicable to the 4 federal entitlement programs administered by the county from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Every dollar invested through these programs will be tied back to the 5-year goals presented here today. The 4 federal entitlement programs included in the Consolidated Plan Strategy support the 5 strategic domains in the county's framework for ending homelessness. These programs also support the 5P solution framework established in the county's housing blueprint, which are to promote equity, produce housing for all, preserve vulnerable housing, protect tenants, and prevent displacement. Here with me today to present on the process and development of the 2025 to 29 Consolidated Plan Strategy is David Estrella, Director, and Kelly Salmons, Deputy Director of Housing and Community Development Services, or HCDS. David?
Thank you, Kim. As mentioned, today's Consolidated Plan Strategy sets the strategic goals that will be incorporated into the 25-29 Consolidated Plan, which directs investments for the upcoming 5 years. These 4 federal entitlement grants are the county's primary outside funding source for affordable housing, community development, and related services, providing approximately $14 million per year. Each entitlement program has a slightly different mission and eligible service area. The Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG program, supports communities by addressing local housing and community development needs in the urban county, which includes the unincorporated county and 6 participating cities, including Coronado, Del Mar, Imperial Beach, Lemon Grove, Poway, and Solana Beach. The Home Investment Partnerships program funds the development of affordable housing and rental assistance to lower-income households. The Home Consortium includes the urban county, as well as the 6 cities of Carlsbad, Encinitas, La Mesa, San Marcos, Santee, and Vista. The Emergency Solutions Grant, or ESG program, provides direct services to persons experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness within the urban county. Lastly, our HOPO program, or Housing Opportunities for Persons with HIV/AIDS, provides housing and services to persons living with HIV/AIDS and their families throughout the entire region of San Diego County, including the city of San Diego. To develop the Consolidated Plan Strategy, our planning process includes several community engagement and stakeholder outreach efforts focused on the unincorporated county and the other eligible service areas. The input received through our community engagement efforts were foundational to the proposed Consolidated Plan goals. Now I'll pass it over to Kelly, who will share the community input received and our proposed 25 through 29 goals in greater detail. Kelly?
Thank you, David.
As mentioned, community input is key in the development of the Consolidated Plan. From June to August this year, HCDS conducted a variety of community engagement activities to gather feedback on how communities would like to prioritize funding and assess community needs throughout the region. This feedback was used to set strategic goals for our strategy for the coming fiscal year. These activities included an online community input questionnaire, 10 in-person community forums, 2 virtual community input sessions, and activities were promoted through stakeholder listservs, the county's social media, county news center, and the Live Well San Diego partner distribution lists. We also utilized the county's new community engagement portal, Engage San Diego County. In total, these activities yielded nearly 85,000 impressions and participation from 242 residents. In addition to community engagement efforts, HCDS engaged with community stakeholders to develop a deeper understanding of how regional services, resource shortages, and needs of our most vulnerable populations intersect. More than 40 organizations have been completed or have been invited to complete stakeholder consultations. These consultations span across various industries and include county departments like child and family well-being, affordable housing developers and service providers, nonprofits who provide support services to low-income residents, homeless services, and shelter providers. Additionally, fair housing advocates and representatives from other local municipalities throughout the region. At the conclusion of our community engagement efforts, the feedback received from both community members and stakeholders was analyzed and categorized into the following 3 key themes. The first theme was housing cost and availability. This included expanding our housing stock, utilizing existing housing more efficiently, and developing more creative solutions for keeping people housed. The second theme was centered on homelessness. Working to improve the homeless crisis was a common priority. This included a focus on enhancing access to services and resources, strengthening comprehensive outreach and prevention services, and increasing the availability and location of homeless shelters, including those offering mental health and case management services. Lastly, the input received encompassed a theme that is best categorized as quality of life and cost of living. Input included improvements to public services and infrastructure that would increase one's quality of life and help reduce the cost of living. Some examples included meal assistance programs, improved senior centers and services, road improvement projects, and expanding home programs to assist with the growing need for solar panel and home generators. The 3 community input themes were instrumental in shaping the proposed 25-29 Consolidated Plan goals, which will be incorporated into the full Consolidated Plan. Goals include 1, invest in housing options that both expand the affordable housing stock and increase efficiency and affordability within the existing housing supply. 2, strengthen and support housing stability amongst the region's most vulnerable populations by supporting programs across the homeless to housed continuum. And 3, improve quality of life throughout communities by improving access to vital services, community infrastructure, and economic development opportunities. These strategic goals will guide investments for our HUD entitlement funding over the next 5 years. By aligning these goals with community input, we ensure that our approach remains responsive to local needs and focused on impactful resource allocation. The Consolidated Plan strategy has been available for public comment on the HCDS website and in HCDS's lobby since September 20th, 2004. The public comment process was publicized in the county's threshold languages. Notices were posted online, as well as in the Union Tribune and 6 additional general circulation publications. Additionally, HCDS notified more than 8,000 community stakeholders via email of the proposed Consolidated Plan and this hearing. Today's hearing marks the end of the public comment period. Following today's hearing, a full Consolidated Plan will be drafted, which will include quantitative, measurable benchmarks for each of the strategic goals presented here today. The 25-29 Consolidated Plan will be posted for public comment in February of 2025 and presented at a March 2025 board hearing for approval. Included with the Consolidated Plan will be the fiscal year 25-26 annual plan, which will recommend projects for funding in the upcoming year based on today's strategic goals. Consolidated plans are due to HUD on May 15th and go into effect on July 1st. The requested action before you today is to hold this public hearing to receive public input on the housing and community development needs and approve draft goals for 25-29 Consolidated Plan Strategy. This concludes our presentation, and we are available for any questions.
On behalf of Chairwoman, item, we have 8 requests by phone. Also, any individual dial into the conference line. Begin with the in-person speaker. Until it is your turn to speak. To address the board, I'd like to invite forward critics, followed by and allegedly.
All right, thank you. All right, so again, my name is Dr. Truth Bay. I'm a policy analyst, and I focus on continuum of care. So a lot of the things, Ms. Sammons, that you were mentioning, it repeats and it needs oversight, okay? There's a lot of deliberate misappropriation. There are not a lot of lived experience people at the table, okay? When I look at people that look like me, we are always the recipients, not the decision makers. That's number one. Number two, Shabak Altruistic Inc. has been serving San Diego County for over 30 years. Many of you know Dr. Carroll. I'm a policy analyst for her, mainly because we have 30-plus acres sitting there which housing could be built on a long time ago. A lot of the services that we provide is coming out of our own pockets. Why? There are millions and millions of dollars of federal funding. We got an $8.64 billion budget, right, Mr. Desmond, for San Diego County. And I want us to be very clear. The public doesn't really know that it's the continuum of care that's responsible for homelessness. You got to do town halls with the people. You got to let our taxpayers know exactly what is really happening. So I personally would like to work with you at the table with our group so we can actually narrow down the funding and really house people for real. Because this presentation is lovely, but it just blows smoke. In reality, we have to be real on where the funding is going, because a lot of the staff of homeless agencies are being paid, but the services are being cut. So let's stop making money off of people's tragedy and let's house people for real. And this is why we're here. So we're working not only for San Diego, but Sacramento County, Alameda County, Los Angeles County, and we want these counties to work together because this is where the highest rate of homelessness is. So that being said, I say thank you again for allowing me to speak, and I will give you my information and I'd like to connect with you afterwards. Each district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mark, Rosa Corey, California expert court witness, states in her testimony.
For 30 years, I've worked for the California Department of Transportation. I'm a district branch chief, and I've just retired. I'm a litigation support person and expert witness in land use and property valuation. And those years of analysis and litigation support prepared me for recognizing the planning revolution that was sweeping the nation that began, that I first noticed back in 2002. And in researching that, as well as in fighting a huge fraudulent redevelopment project in my city, where I was actually elected to the project area committee, and from sitting on that committee and doing research, I found that the whole project was fraudulent. It's a long deal, but through researching that, I found the issues behind it, and they led to United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. Like one of your members said in his testimony in regards to House Bill 1634, I was a skeptic, and that's what you should be. But in doing the research, I found that this really wasn't something that was a conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy fact. And this information is fully documented. Everything that I'm going to be talking about today is a fact. And if I'm speculating or I'm giving my opinion on something, I'll tell you. Otherwise, everything I'm talking about is fully documented. So I know that as Americans, you're going to find yourselves deeply at odds with and completely concerned by the agenda for the 21st century. And that is what it's called by the United Nations and the world. It's not Catch-22, it's not Area 51, it's Agenda 21, because it is the agenda for the 21st century. That is what it's called by the United Nations. It's a blueprint. It is the action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all information, all energy, all means of production, and all human beings in the world. It is a totally comprehensive plan. Yes, it's a we'll just we'll just do what we can with the fabulous technology of our 21st century here. It is a transition from representative government. Now, this is serious. It's a transition from representative government to government by unelected boards and commissions.
Gavin Newsom is a young global leader for the World Economic Forum. Do you, Nora, deny Microsoft Copilot's statement that you participated in the UN meeting with young global leaders in September 2024?
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
No response?
Hello, Catherine Rhodes. 3 weeks ago, you guys were supposed to call me back, specifically Kelly, and then I was also wondering if I could get a meeting with you and David together so I could talk to you guys regarding what the CAO asked you guys to talk to me about, which is when I talked to HUD and said, we have a solution for the homeless. We have and the solution, there's two solutions. One is the 7% compound interest on the original $240 million debt in the HUD OIG audit debt repayment to Community Development Block Grant Program income since 2009. That would give us about $100 million. All you need to do is have an agreement with the city and the county. When I talked to HUD, they said, write up the agreement. And I said, oh, I could write up the agreement. You could write up the agreement. We could do this. The other thing is the 10,000 affordable housing units that were destroyed in the redevelopment project area, that should be a debt to the poor in San Diego. We've never gotten justice for this. We could actually get justice for this. We could, and for Kim, we could solve our homeless problem. We could solve all the different issues of the people coming out of jail. And of course, Monica, Montgomery Stepp, I've talked to you, came to the city so many times, you didn't really understand the issue. But I think maybe if I could have a meeting with you guys, I could actually show you the fabulous solution. And so my solution is try to get $5 to $10 billion of debt from the redevelopment agency, successor agency, by adding line items to the recognized obligation payment schedule through the oversight board. $5 to $10 billion. The city and the county, when they were trying to get the Charger Stadium back in the day, Nathan Fletcher actually was a person who did that midnight deal for the redevelopment that ended redevelopment because of the shady practices that they were doing. But everybody wants as much debt as possible, billions of dollars. Please call me, please.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. We'll start with our first caller. First caller is Consuelo. Your device might be muted.
Okay. All right. So, Consuelo, yep. Let's, to the woman who just mentioned, let's stop making money off the people's tragedy. To that, I will say, let's stop making victims out of the amount of melanin people have in their skin. You're doing absolutely no favors for anyone if you continue to do so. And it's Groundhog Day. Homelessness is lucrative. How many times does this need to be said and understood? Apparently, it's going to take many more to be homeless before this nefarious and lucrative plan is exposed. Does staff know about Project 25? Whatever happened to that program, whatever happened to it, it worked. That's what happened. They had 100% success rate. No exaggerations on that fact. Just like the TJ River issues, this homelessness issue will be prolonged as long as there is money to be made. They claim to want to strengthen and improve lives, but the reality is that all this county does is weaken the people, divide the people, the vulnerable people. They will continue to be at the mercy of this local government and what it has in store for them. Wake up to the deception. Wake up to the manipulation. We are one people. I don't care how much melanin you have in your freaking skin or don't have. We are one race, the human race. Get with it.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Yeah, we need to quit blowing smoke up the people's, rears. And like what we're doing is actually helping the problem, because you guys can plan and strategize all you want, but the proof in your actions and what actually comes forward from them that proves to people that this is a bunch of busy work. It's to placate the people like you're actually going to solve the problem, but it is a business, and it will continue to stay a business when we're working with NGOs, nefarious gangster operations, and of the like, to pretend to provide the services that need to be provided, all while it's filling and lining the pockets of the CEOs. And, the people then just continue to suffer because it isn't about stopping it. That's the problem. It's you don't have a business if you don't have a customer. So the point is to continue to keep the customers so that you can continue to have a business. And it's sad because this is off the backs of people who are suffering, people that need these dire, resources that are just being denied or put on a list to just continue to wait. And it'll be interesting when the point in time count comes forward again to show that your actions have failed miserably as far as trying to provide or pretending to provide these resources to the people. And, it's sad because none of you have to worry about where you're going to lay your head down to sleep, what kind of food you're going to be able to eat, yet you don't mind that these people are suffering and are just have to come and continually, time after time, ask for the things that, we've already been paying for. And yet then we give it to illegals. We give it to so many people that aren't deserving, don't, support the community. And so if you weren't doing those kinds of things, maybe there'd be more resources. But again, because it's a business, there's never going to be enough, because then you would get rid of your customers. And just like Big Pharma, you need your customers in order to continually come back in order to have your business. So, hopefully one day you don't ever have to go and actually be homeless and see what that feels like. But at the same time, maybe you need to be so that you can.
Thank you. Your time is up, and I'm going to ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
My person uses the name Audra.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
All bold. I hope you can hear me now. Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Do you hear me? Okay. HHSA goals are affordable housing opportunities, housing stability, and improve the quality of life. HHSA hasn't done it yet. The primary drivers of unaffordability are greed of large developers. You need to cap rent increases and the cost of living. 2, you need to build quicker than traditional housing. There are 3D printed houses, tiny houses, shipping crate houses, things like Adobe construction. These are cheaper, quicker to build, and align more closely with the current housing needs. So when the market takes off or housing demand decreases, you won't have such a huge oversupply. 3, we need to provide mental, behavioral, and other health services all over the county. We've made a good start, but most of the centers with complete services are still concentrated in the big coastal cities. So, HHSA can put all the fancy documents they want over on us, but they still need to do a heck of a better job in doing what they set out to do in the first place. Thanks.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
I don't want to crap on the county, or at least the manager that is in charge in trying to help us fix up San Diego, complete the streets. But the problem is he's handicapped from the Board of Supervisors.
I'm going to ask you to please state your name for the record.
I only got 1 minute. So, with that being said, you could say it for me. If you guys telling them, setting up these $11 million projects that are government, basically we're backing them because they're not going to be able to succeed in doing that. And I don't necessarily blame all the county employees and some of the managers on that. I completely and utterly blame the Board of Supervisors that are setting things up. We don't have a housing problem because people are getting that there's not enough houses. No, people are getting kicked out of their houses through, what you want to call natural disasters, but really, quite honestly, you guys set that up so that you could, get more homeless, because the homeless is where you guys get the votes so that you could continue your shenanigans. Pay attention to Virginia. Virginia will show the fact that there is election fraud. The states that do all vote by mail, they're screwed. And the other states, varying on how they do the vote by mail thing, whether or not how corrupt it's going to be. So let's go ahead and wait and see how that turns out, and then continue doing your crap. And I hope all this stops at the end of this, and I hope nothing bad takes place. But everyone is scared right now. And it's because your guys' inactions to take care of a problem you should have taken take care of a long time ago, instead of throwing me away, throwing me in jail.
For the record, the speaker is Justin Castro. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Truth for the record, thank you, county camera crew, for that fast sweep angle to the beginning of the presentation. That actually helped wake me up from Tara's political theater speech earlier. Also, for the record, I am one of those so-called impressions who checked out the county's Engage website. Ironically, I was not impressed and quickly left the site. Why does it feel like the CDBG Bucks, Hopper, Washington's Home Partnership pennies, and ESG Greenbacks keep coming back every month without any real, tangible update? I don't think I even approve of what this item refers to as an overarching plan. Excluding business Stepford stakeholders, has there been enough real feedback to create a plan? Is the county asking the homeless their opinions on the current programs about whether or not they're actually working or accessible? I want staff on the equal ground level with those they claim to serve. And since it has to do with housing, does any of the money go to fulfilling the state's RHNA housing quotas, which the county continually fails at? What a caper. What even is this permanent affordable housing this item refers to as a mathematical impossibility? And logically affordable to who? Is there a quota for homes that are for renting or for buying? Because only the purchasing of a home can truly ensure its affordability for its current owner. A renter has very few assurances of anything at all. None of you have successfully covered your bases on housing. So instead of continuing to strike out, I would prefer that the county instead refunds all of these tax dollars to every person that pays the taxes so that they are able to afford rent, mortgage, or a down payment. Monica, you guys need to triple check how you spend our money. And quit letting Tara do interviews during this meeting. I saw her leave at 2:35 p.m. Does everybody know she has 2 homes yet can't even show up to work on time or be bothered to stay? Real solution. Advocate for the abolishment of the Federal Reserve so we can finally reduce and stop inflation. Make building housing more affordable by waiving building fees. And question, is Groundhog Day a synonym for broken record solutions that don't get implemented? Thank you.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I just have one procedural question, and that is, does this hearing close the public comment period?
Through the chairwoman, yes, Supervisor. It closes on the strategy component. There will be further community engagement on the development of the actual plan.
Okay. I mean, we heard some public comments here today, and it's an ongoing and evolving process, right? So appreciate that. So I think that the only thing that I want to add to this conversation is kind of focusing on how we can continue to build capacity for organizations that we haven't normally done business with or awarded before. The CDBG pot, there's a lot of requirements, and it's a really onerous process, but I do recall a program that we had at the City of San Diego that was very specific to building capacity for smaller nonprofits that eventually did qualify as CDBG applicants. It was a very rigorous, like 2-day, curriculum. And so doing something like that, or things that more fit the county structure, would be good to kind of maximize our applicant pool, to make sure that we're touching everybody that we can with the many solutions that our community members and nonprofit organizations bring to the table. So appreciate the fact that a lot of the feedback really focused on affordable housing. That is not new to any of us, right? That is what we hear and also what we internally need to do overall. So it's good to see that a chunk of funding is going there. I think I just want to add that to the conversation around making sure that we are building capacity of either smaller nonprofits or nonprofits that we haven't traditionally had a relationship with, to open up those doors for more solutions for our communities. But with that, I will move the recommendation, and thank you again.
Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. And thanks for the presentation. I appreciate it. And one of the things that I've gotten some requests here recently, and especially in unincorporated areas. And we are building senior housing, we are building affordable housing. But one of the things we aren't building are sidewalks. For people who go in affordable or go in senior housing, we don't always have passageways for them to get to the center of town, to get to grocery stores, or to get to some of the amenities that are out in the unincorporated areas. And just because of the way it's evolved, there's a lot of blank areas where there's sidewalks end, begin. Even some of the street curbs aren't ADA available or accessible. They don't have whatever the ramped area there on the curbs and sidewalks. So when we do put in affordable housing or senior housing or those types of things, that we don't forget the infrastructure that is going to be necessary for people to get to amenities. And that's, so I don't know if CDBG dollars, I know we've used those in the past when I was in San Marcos, that we used for curb and gutter and type of things. But I'm starting to hear from entities where we are building, it's like, well, I can't get to town, or I got to go in the middle of the street or down the street, and there's no curb and sidewalk. So if that could be part of any CDBG or dollars going towards these efforts. We need the housing, but we got to have access as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it short because I'm losing my voice. But I just did want to say thank you to the staff for all the work in consolidation and the consolidation plan strategy. I think it's a critical road as we're moving forward with entitlement funding over the next 5 years. And I'm looking forward to extensive, to have all the community engagement. I know that has been done. One thing I wanted to ask is, how do we make sure that all of the different initiatives that we've been voting on in the last 4 years are incorporated into this? So for instance, and I know Barbara is here, I see her in the back, but like the program that we're doing with the DA, right, Summer Stephan, on the websites and figuring out where space is located and shelter is available. And so I don't know, how deep does this go in terms of consolidation and making sure that we're bringing everything to the table when the plan is done?
So, Chair, thank you for your question. So this plan focuses on our entitlement funding from the federal government. So it's those 4 main programs. So it's designed around us planning and then reporting back to HUD, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, how these monies are spent. What we do is we leverage through, in this case, Health and Human Services Agency, and we're a matrix organization, so that the efforts that are happening in Housing and Community Development, Office of Homeless Solutions, and all the various behavioral health services, et cetera. So we leverage our resources together and we coordinate in the sense of these funding sources have specific areas where they can be used and eligibility is where they're used. So they overlay with other county programs and departments.
Thank you. And I think the other question I would have would be, so if there are barriers, right, because one thing is to report back and we get community input, but when there are barriers and there might be some legislative challenges or changes that we have to make, what is that process that, I'm assuming that it happens, but how does that usually work?
Yeah, Chair Wonto, I can, or did you want to go ahead, Caroline?
I'll start. Thank you so much, Kim, and kick it over to Kim. So from the legislative side, I know our Office of Economic Development and Government Affairs works closely with David and Kelly and the team to identify, as they learn throughout their community planning process, some of the things that we can build into our federal advocacy when these programs come up for reauthorization. So David and Kelly and their analysts sit down and say, here are the barriers that we faced the last time we did our consolidated plan, and when some of these HUD programs are up for reauthorization, here are the changes we would seek in the legislation.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, I think Caroline covered it.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you so much. So with that, we have a motion and a second, so please vote.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye. Next item for the board's discussion is item number 27, entitled Authorize Competitive Solicitations, Single Source Procurements, Amendments to Extend Existing Contracts, and Acceptance of Mental Health Student Services Act grant funds from the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission. I'll turn it over to county staff for a presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Vargas and members of the board. County Behavioral Health Services provides a comprehensive array of mental health and substance use services to people of all ages. Through county-operated programs and contracts with community service providers, these services directly support an average of 100,000 San Diegans each year who are low income and eligible for Medi-Cal. Today, we are requesting authorization for the procurement of a range of existing services, which are critical to maintaining and anticipating future needs in the behavioral health system of care. With me to discuss this item is Dr. Luke Bergman, Director for Behavioral Health Services, and I'll now turn it over to Dr. Bergman.
Thank you, Kim. Over the past few years, the county's been working on transforming our behavioral health system from a model of care driven by crises to one driven by chronic or continuous care and prevention. Today's actions will authorize procurements and contract extensions for a range of programs which support our coordinated network of care and include youth-focused crisis stabilization units, outpatient and residential programs, inpatient services, workforce development, and community-based care. Actions in today's item are particularly reflective of the county's commitment to ensuring access to behavioral health care for young people. Today, we're presenting 4 recommendations to the board. The first 3 would authorize competitive solicitations, single source contracts, and amendments to extend existing contracts, culminating in an estimated total investment of $98.9 million. Additionally, the 4th recommendation included in today's item would authorize the acceptance of grant funding, which I'll be discussing momentarily. Recommendation 1 requests authorization to issue competitive solicitations for 4 essential services. The first 2 shown on this slide. First are 24-hour mental health rehabilitation centers, or MHRCs, which provide secure, round-the-clock, long-term care for adults living with serious mental illness. This level of support is crucial for individuals who need continuous care and supervision. Next are locum tenens services. These services help us address staffing challenges by providing temporary clinical staff for county-operated mental health facilities to ensure we can maintain consistent, high-quality care even when we're facing workforce shortages. The third contract included in recommendation 1 for competitive solicitation is the Children and Youth Crisis Stabilization Unit. This service plays a vital role in our behavioral health system, offering short-term crisis intervention and stabilization for youth under 18. The program offers immediate services including psychiatric evaluations, crisis intervention, case management, and medication support. This service is instrumental in preventing hospitalizations and ensuring young people receive timely care and are connected to ongoing treatment. In fiscal year 23-24 alone, the Children's CSU received over 1,300 admissions and served nearly 1,000 unduplicated clients. Notably, about 70% of those admissions were diverted from inpatient hospitalization, underscoring its role in preventing more intensive care for young people. Finally, we recommend a competitive solicitation for training and technical assistance for community-based providers. This will support small, minority-owned organizations to provide Medi-Cal-funded behavioral health care to underserved populations by relieving some of the administrative burden associated with the Medi-Cal certification process. The second recommendation requests authority to procure single-source contracts for 2 services. The first is for an adult substance use outpatient program for alcohol use, formerly known as the Serial Inebriate Program. This central region-based program provides outpatient substance use treatment, recovery, and ancillary services to adults with a primary alcohol use disorder and may include co-occurring mental health and other substance use conditions. For this service, we are requesting a single source contract with Mental Health Systems, Inc., doing business as TURN, as they are the sole provider within San Diego County with an established history and specialized model providing primary alcohol use treatment services and their unique knowledge in service provision to the target populations of people experiencing homelessness and those with law enforcement involvement. The second single source contract is for school-based outpatient behavioral health services, which delivers culturally competent behavioral health services to youth up to 21 years old and their families at designated schools, homes, community office locations, and via telehealth. This service complements the Screening to Care initiative launched in 2022, which is being implemented to establish a universal behavioral health screening tool across schools in the county. In fiscal year 23-24, as part of the School Link initiative, school-based outpatient services were provided at 393 schools countywide, making care available to thousands of students who might otherwise face barriers in accessing behavioral health support. Through School Link, the county has formed long-standing partnerships with schools and providers to create a system of care that emphasizes the accessibility of tailored services on school campuses. School districts play a key role in selecting the providers that best meet the needs of their students and communities. SBCS Corporation, already a trusted provider of school-based services in the South region, was selected by the San Ysidro School District as the new provider for these services, owing to their unique expertise, resources, and familiarity with the community they serve. For the third recommendation, we're requesting authority to extend 5 current contracts, 3 of which are shown here on this slide. The Substance Use Teen Residential Treatment Program provides treatment, recovery, and ancillary services for youth 12 to 17 years old with substance use issues, including co-occurring mental health needs. In fiscal year 23-24, 93 unduplicated clients were served by this program. Of these clients, 98.5% had no new arrests. 100% were referred to outpatient services. 94% were employed or in school, and 97% of those experiencing homelessness at intake were housed. The second contract is for the Behavioral Health Collaborative Court with Telecare, a treatment program for justice-involved adults with serious mental illness to reduce recidivism and allow for a more successful reintegration into the community. And third, with Behavioral Health Services' recent transition to Smart Care as the new clinical and billing database for providers, a contract extension for web infrastructure treatment services is needed. The extension will allow for a more seamless transition to the new database. Also included in Recommendation 3 is a request to extend 2 existing contracts providing community engagement and messaging. To ensure our department has adequate time to assess the impacts of the transition from the Mental Health Services Act to the Behavioral Health Services Act, or BHSA, Behavioral Health Services is recommending extensions of 2 existing prevention and early intervention programs that support community engagement and public messaging, which are key facets of the BHSA. Extending contracts with the Breaking Down Barriers program and its Up to Us media campaign will ensure continuity of existing outreach and education services amid growing public messaging needs. These contracts enable us to reach stakeholders, including priority populations, on a scale we would not be able to otherwise. To further complement our ongoing efforts in expanding behavioral health services for children and youth, today's action also requests the authority to accept $800,000 of Mental Health Student Services Act grant funding. These funds will support further development of the Creating Opportunities in Preventing and Eliminating Suicide, or COPES program, by establishing a dedicated planning team focused on mental health screening initiatives among school-aged youth. In summary, we ask the board to approve today's recommendation, which will issue competitive solicitations, authorize single-source contracts, amend to extend existing contract terms, and authorize the acceptance of MHSSA grant funds. Thanks for the opportunity to present to you today. This includes our presentation, and we're here for questions.
Thank you.
We have 8 comments. Individuals that request to the conference will be this item. Please come forward. Michelle Gordon, Critical Truth Bay, and Mark. You'll have 1 minute to address the board since there are more than 10 speakers on this item. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Faith Gordon. I'm speaking on item 27. I am one of the program supervisors for Breaking Down Barriers under Jewish Family Services San Diego. Over the past 5 years, we have been serving Black, Brown, and Indigenous people of color and the LGBTQI+ communities, reducing mental health stigma and discrimination. We've been able to reach over 17,000 folks about mental health and wellness, establishing strong relationships and building trust with the aforementioned communities. Approval of funding for another 18 months will allow for us to continue to build upon these strong foundations we have created, as well as continue to provide resources linking communities to other agencies, especially those that are Black, Brown, and veteran-owned. This includes mental health therapy resources, resources for those struggling with food scarcity, as well as housing instability and other services. We thank the county for their continued support of Breaking Down Barriers, and we ask that today you approve the extension of the contract for 18.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mark, 1 minute is criminal. So Rosa Corey does also speak in this video on YouTube about mental health and how they're making more people ill. They want this, it's profitable, and it's part of the UN plan to get rid of America's freedom and develop the North American Union. That's a real thing. If you see her video, it's all documented. She's an absolute accepted expert court witness in California. This is her testimony before the New Hampshire legislature. Now, as far as the history of the Psychiatric Association, I know several things about this that are really disturbing. For one thing, doctors can't dissent. Even if they thought that this wasn't a good idea and they wanted to treat the child some other way, it wouldn't matter. They're literally afraid of losing their license and the AMA throwing them out. Treated at schools, will the parents even know? And for God's sake, I hope someone's kid that I know doesn't break up with their boyfriend or girlfriend that day and feel bad and just get given antidepressants. See these videos.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Man, when you were doing this presentation, I almost jumped out my seat. This is dear to my heart, mental health and youth.
Can you please state your name?
Oh, Dr. Critical Truth Bay. One of the things that I'd like to see primarily with the Mental Health Service Act is that you invest more in technology, music. A lot of the young people, they want to do podcasting. They want to do theater arts. So I can't even tell you how important it is. It changed the construct of performing and creative arts added as a wellness recovery action plan as part of the mental health recovery. So whoever gets funding through mental health for San Diego, please emphasize the arts in whatever you do, because that is really will reduce suicide prevention, especially amongst our young people, transitional age youth specifically. Thank you.
Now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. Again, I'll ask the individuals to please state their name for the audio record. Start with the first caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Chair Vargas, my name is Terry Ann Skelly. I came today to support item 27 regarding mental health and substance use services to people of all ages, recognizing that children and youth have complex mental health and substance use health conditions. Our county planning group appreciates its funding and attention to mental health and substance use health, especially in our unincorporated areas, who often feel they are being overlooked at Board of Supervisors meetings. During the listening sessions this summer regarding increasing the number of marijuana businesses in the unincorporated areas of the county, many of us have felt that staff was differential to those pot profiteers rather than the county citizens. Mental health specialists have provided research at Board of Supervisors meetings regarding increased youth marijuana normalization and amplified mental health problems. Youth advocates at these Board of Supervisors meetings have deplored the high-potency flavored marijuana.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
All of those. Again, there is no reason in the attachments given for having a single source procurement. So God only knows how much money we'll be wasting. We and you should know whether the contractors are actually living up to the contract, whether they're performing well, paying unnecessarily high salaries, curing people, or simply patching them up, asking for unneeded equipment, and so on. We want to make sure we're getting our money worth. Glad we're getting a bit of fun, but, I'd really like to see a lot more performance detail before approval. HHSA does not, in my opinion, have a good record of protecting the entire county. They seem to be...
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Pam, no on any of this. The last thing we need is the government more involved in the mental health of our children. Parents, you need to be advised Governor Newsom signed into law 2 bills. AB 665 allows a minor who is 12 years of age or older may consent to mental health treatment or counseling on an outpatient basis or go to a residential shelter without the parent's knowledge or consent. And there's no exit point for a minor child to exit the residential care facility. AB 1955 allows schools to keep secrets from parents regarding sex and gender issues. This is a nice pathway from the school to the residential shelter if the child is concerned about going home. Dr. Bergman, you speak in a nice, soft tone, but parents, beware.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Consuelo, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so to the doctor in the house, the one with the long hair, white jacket, I couldn't agree more. Wouldn't it be nice if this local county government focused on the positive for our youth? Unfortunately, this local government board is not interested in strengthening our young. They're only into having more and more, synthetic medicines be pressed upon them. They're not into getting to the source or the root of the issues, which they can't because they are the source and the root of the problems of us all, quite frankly. And until the day people want to come to that truth and that realization, we will continue to have these issues and these.
Thank you. Hear from the next caller.
I don't understand why you want to interfere with children's mental state of health.
I'm going to ask you to please state your name for the record.
Your worst nightmare?
Ask you to please state the name that you registered to speak with.
Okay, then are you going to give me more than 1 minute, or are you just trying to figure out different ways that you could suppress people's voice so you could pass your evil agenda?
If you follow the directions, put him on hold, yeah. So, just for everyone who's speaking, if you follow the guidelines, nobody's going to keep asking you for your name. So, I'm going to repeat again. Guidelines are that you say your name, and then you're able to speak. Okay, we're going to give you back. Go ahead and continue.
What are the guidelines of you arresting me for flipping you off in a meeting? What are the guidelines on that? Excuse me? I want to hear that. You don't follow directions. Why do you expect me to? You don't follow the law. Why do you expect me to? Why? Because you're sitting on that throne of yours? It's a weak fucking throne. I hope you understand that.
So this is your first warning. You're off topic, and you're creating challenges for us to continue our meeting.
How is that? You're interrupting me. If you would let me talk, we wouldn't have...
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Beware of BS Director Bergman, up to bat, it's truth. These programs should be dismantled for batting zero and tangible results. There should be zero sole source monopoly contracts. There should be details on who is employed in the locum tenens services. Mental health systems has 50-plus locations, so they already have a monopoly on the mental health industrial complex. No to behavioral health within schools, and definitely not by the human trafficker enabling SPCS. There's not even specifics as to whether children would be subjected to evaluations or put on drugs without parental knowledge while in school. Also note of the other human trafficker enabling Jewish Family Services for their breaking down barriers, which has been promoting racist identity politics to children. Note a rescue agency who call themselves a behavior change agency with colorful communist propaganda. Fate Inc. Systems has contracts with DOD, the VA, HHS, and USAID. Sounds like a monopoly on people's health data. Since undocumented illegal migrants are now allowed to be on Medi-Cal, I'd like to see a breakdown of how that affects Californians now fighting for resources. In eugenics era, forced and forced miscare of government-targeted priority populations. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. All right, Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. First, let me thank you for the presentation. Of course, as we know, a lot of work goes into what you all do, so thank you. I'll focus my comments on one particular part of the presentation, and that is the importance of the efforts that we'll be undertaking to secure a contract for Medi-Cal training and technical assistance. I believe that these types of services will be key moving forward, as we already have so many smaller community-based organizations that are doing the work of providing behavioral health services, but don't have the staffing or the funding to deal with our very onerous, complex process of securing contracts with our managed care plans and performing the medical billing that is required there. So we know a lot of our CBOs are already providing services that they could, in fact, be reimbursed for, like housing navigation, tenancy services, post-hospitalization, housing, recuperative care, personal care services, and under the Medi-Cal transformation, these providers could be receiving reimbursement from Medi-Cal for their services. But because this is new, because they are smaller, they're unable to secure the contracts with our managed care plans. And so we're looking towards building their capacity based on securing or putting that RFP out there for that training. And I'm very, very excited about that, because it sounds easier than it actually is. And yes, our organizations are smaller. They may have smaller budgets, but they are very resilient and they are doing the work. And so if there's a way for us legally to allow for them to be reimbursed, then I think moving in that direction is awesome. I just really wanted to highlight that part. There's a lot of great things in what you're bringing forward. Also, thank you for separating the sole source the sole source contracts and really kind of going through those. I appreciate that because I'm very careful about approving sole source contracting. I think we should make every effort if we can to put the net out there and see who is out there and who can actually build relationships with regarding our contracting efforts and our procurement efforts. So thank you for kind of separating that out and explaining that. I think it's a really important opportunity that we're embarking upon. And I thank you for bringing this entire item forward, but obviously that's my favorite part since I keep talking about it. And I will move the item forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to second. There's no further discussion. We have a motion and a second.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye. Next item for the board's discussion is item number 29, entitled Direct the Chief Administrative Officer to pledge the County of San Diego to become a partner of California's Climate Action Counts initiative. We'll proceed with public comment on this item. We have 13 requests to speak, 3 in person and 10 requesting to speak by phone. Also note that we received 2 e-comments in favor. For individuals that requested to speak on item 29 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with the individual in favor, followed by those in opposition. As the name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. I'd like to invite forward Juan Cruz, followed by Mark and Oliver Twist. Again, because we have 10 or more speakers on this item, your comments will be limited to 1 minute. So please keep your comments to 1 minute, and I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Good afternoon, Oliver Twist. Strong opposition to this. One is, again, that more tokenism, the Climate Action Counts initiative. First of all, you listed it has no cost. I would argue, yes, there is a cost, and that's called opportunity cost, that you're going to take it out of department budgets and work it in, but that means something within that budget that is not going to get funded. So please don't try to camouflage the cost by saying it'll get absorbed. Also, for action, for jet setting, I would recommend climate action plan that you limit air miles traveled for supervisors and no out-of-country travel and 1 cross-country trip a year. Lastly, again, conspiracy fact. This is not a theory. This is something that really happened about the cloud seeding. And I'm asking if you are going to pursue affirmative litigation that you look at this Santa Ana water rivershed, cloud seeded January 20th to 22nd, historic rain reminiscent of Hatfield 100 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mark, see these on YouTube.
Hello, I'm John Coleman, and the name of this presentation is There Is No Significant Global Warming. And I'm the guy that is just doggone sure of that. Now, you may think that I'm just a paid-off shill, big oil, or something of that sort. No. They've never given me a nickel. I'm a television weathercaster with 60 years experience, a meteorologist. I was the first weatherman on Good Morning America. I'm the man who founded the Weather Channel, and this is my accomplishment. Broadcast Meteorologist of the Year from the American Meteorological Society, of which I was a professional member for many years. I finally quit the AMS when it became very clear to me that the politics had gotten in the way of the science. But this recent warming is no different than the warming that has occurred many times before. Naturally, we had a medieval optimum when the Roman Empire flourished.
See the videos.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We will start with our first caller.
Pam, so this is a no. Any of you willing on the board willing to stop jet setting and stop flying? All right, under subject in this document, the California Climate Action Corps is the country's first state-level climate service course to empower all Californians to take meaningful action to safeguard the climate. Empower means mandate. We all know that. Safeguard means what? Control. Are you controlling the climate, or are you controlling the people? This is a non-elected government agency that will control the people without their consent. Under equity impact, the county is going to pursue solutions to build climate resilient future. So what? You guys will stop climate change, or you're going to make it stronger, or the people have to adapt? This is a bunch of nonsense in words. Under fiscal impact, it's free to become a partner with California, but we all know it's going to cost money down the road. And as Oliver Twist pointed out, and I will too, you will take money from other programs. And this infringes on...
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. David Santillan here on behalf of California Volunteers, Office of the Governor, San Diego County. Take the pledge to become a partner of California's Climate Action Counts campaign. The campaign is a statewide initiative aimed at mobilizing communities to take climate action, reduce their carbon footprint, and support efforts that strengthen climate resilience. We believe San Diego County can play a pivotal role in this movement. The Climate Action Counts campaign is an opportunity to amplify the incredible work already being done by the county in areas like sustainability, disaster preparedness, and environmental stewardship. By joining this initiative, San Diego County will be able to enhance its outreach and access resources to engage residents in climate-related service and volunteer opportunities. I strongly encourage you to join the statewide effort. We've been joined by partners like Sierra Club California, Relief, Patagonia, and Jane Goodall Institute, and various municipalities like Riverside and Sacramento, and many more. Together, we can amplify the message that every action counts in this fight against climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon. I'm Maurice Lyles, Southern California Director for the Office of Governor Gavin Newsom. The Office of Governor Gavin Newsom applauds Chairwoman Nora Vargas and the San Diego County Board of Supervisors for supporting the California Climate Action Count and the Climate Action Corps. This partnership allows volunteers opportunities to serve and build the resilience of their community. Climate Action Corps provides and develops leadership skills and inspires career pathways that address the climate crisis. Your actions today are empowering individuals to take climate action at the scale we need to all grow and thrive. Again, thank you to Chairwoman Vargas and the Board of Supervisors for your partnership and dedication to addressing climate change by creating more sustainable communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
All about climate change is not being handled properly. EVs and BESS are increasing the possibilities of serious wildfires. I'm talking about the line fire in LA and the airport fire in OC. It is happening already. Trash recycling isn't working either. There are plastics in there and all over, and other geological and environmental factors involved, which we could mitigate, like depletion of groundwater, mining emissions, and so on, in addition to plastics. Long list. To replace plastic shopping bags, I suggest you use corn waste to replace plastic instead of leaky paper. People might actually like that better. Right now, the state seems to be doing what is politically feasible rather than environmentally correct. More and more people are rejecting the message, so don't.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Truth in 2022, the socialist United Nations demanded every country pledge allegiance to the climate cult with their Act Now campaign. 2 years later, the state of California creates a Climate Action Counts propaganda campaign right after Climate Week in New York City. Who are the so-called political change makers referred to in this item? And why does their personal cult become the priority in this county when the average person could care less? This political cult campaign is supported by big corporations like Patagonia and Kaiser and big money extremist NGOs like the Sierra Club. All it did was expand government with some 25-member board calling itself California Volunteers, yet none of them are volunteers. They're handpicked by Newsom. But Newsom doesn't care about the climate. He won't even declare a state of emergency for the sewage coming from Mexico. He's literally letting pollution happen. Does Newsom ride a bike to work? Does he risk his life to take out dangerous public transit? Do any of you supervisors take public transit to work every day? Nope. Expensive political theater, trying to control everybody else's lives but your own. No recycling. Throw this in the waste bin.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Gambler here. How you guys doing? If you guys actually cared about global change or even African Americans doing amazing work, you would be looking into a guy named Julian Brown, who made Doc Brown's device. You know, throwing trash into a device and making energy from it. Yeah, no, he actually created that. We would all be excited about recycling plastic, knowing that it's actually getting recycled. And the byproduct of actually doing that is graphene, as I said earlier. And graphene could help you with your whole battery problem, you know, batteries charging them faster and all that stuff. But you guys don't want to go in and cover that, because what you guys would rather do is use slave labor to go ahead and get the cobalt, and you would love to dig major holes removing species of plant from ever existing because you want that lithium. And
Thank you. Now hear from the final caller.
Consuelo. So, a reminder to the people in the chambers and the people listening, the climate is not changing. It's being engineered. The climate is not changing, or yes, actually it is changing because it is being engineered. So let's just get that straight away. Another thing I wanted to remind the people of is that we have to also consider the people who are at the root of this whole climate change thing. You know, rather than save humanity, this dark dystopian agenda is meant to do just the opposite, okay? Seriously.
Okay, thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. So during this year's Climate Week, Governor Newsom announced a new state initiative called Climate Action Counts to mobilize 1 million Californians to take climate action at home and in their neighborhoods to help resilient communities. The initiative aims to educate and inspire all of us to reimagine the power of volunteerism by taking impactful everyday actions in our communities. It calls for cities, universities, state agencies, community-based organizations, businesses, and individuals to pledge to become campaign partners. Becoming a campaign partner provides opportunities to have open dialogue, share best practices, and invest in joint initiatives that will lead to real change. And as we know, climate change is not just a challenge, it's an opportunity for all of us to come together as communities. In our pursuit to build a climate-resilient future for San Diego and declaring our county's pledge to Climate Counts initiative, I think it will help us achieve our goal. So I'm asking my colleagues to join me today in this initiative so we can uplift all the work our county has already done to take climate action and prioritize climate action and to collaborate and coordinate with our state partners. I'd like to ask our Deputy Chief Administrative Officer to share a couple of comments on how the county is currently engaging with the Governor's Climate Action Corps and collaborating with the state on climate resiliency efforts as well, via the CAO.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Yes, we have had the opportunity to have 2 of the Climate Action Corps fellows working with our Public Works recycling program. It's worked out extremely well. We would embrace that opportunity to work further with the state on this or any variety of the other climate action plan implementation items that we've been working with them on.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I don't know how many of you, I was born in 71, and I know the actual campaign started somewhere in the early 70s, but I remember when I was growing up in high school and so on, which is this concept or idea that think globally, act locally, and I think that's what is at the heart of this. And I think what we've done as a county, planting 10,000 trees or really the projects or initiatives that the Vice Chair and I have led around job opportunities for our youth around green jobs, et cetera, I think is exactly what we need to be doing and prioritizing. So with that, I'd like to ask my colleagues and make a motion to support this item as we move forward. Thank you. Supervisor Desmond?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the opportunity. I guess when I first saw this item, kind of the hairs on the back of my neck went up. But when I saw the items that they were asking for, they seemed pretty benign in this climate action counts. Reduce waste, compost food scraps, support local farmers, green your ride, get planting, be disaster ready, save energy, water, and money, discover nature, tell a friend, and get connected by volunteering in the community. So those are the 10 action items. They seem pretty benign to me, and I'm going to be supporting the item. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion. Do you want a second? Somebody wants a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye. The next item for discussion is item 30, entitled Back to Basics, a review of county government core functions, essential services, and customer service responsibilities. We have 13 requests to speak on this item, 3 in person and 10 requesting to speak by phone. Also note that we received 13 e-comments in favor. For any individuals that requested to speak on item 30 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with those in favor, followed by the individual in opposition. As your name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. Because there are 10 or more speakers on this item, your comments will be limited to 1 minute, so please keep your comments to 1 minute. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. I'd like to invite forward Oliver Twist, followed by Critical Truth Bay and Catherine Rhodes. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Oliver Twist here. So thank you, Supervisor Desmond, for bringing this forward. As I've repeatedly said, I'm very alarmed at the direction fiscally that this county government is going. Again, for reference, up by $1.9 billion with a B in 5 years, as well as, and that's an increase of 30%. Staff years from 17,953 in 2020 to 20,471. That's an increase of 14%. Government just gets bigger and bigger, and yet we see this growing gap that CAO Shelton had told us about, the growing alarm for the general fund revenue gap that is growing. So government is getting too big. Often it is just posturing so a politician can say they did something, while the bureaucrats get bigger and nothing really changes. So please rein government in and be good stewards of our tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Final call for Critical Truth Bay, Catherine Rhodes. Not seeing any movement in the chamber. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. We will start with our first caller.
All above. Yes. When will you hire a full-time civics teacher to teach you your responsibilities? Asking buck to customer service all the time is not fair. Nor, by the way, is burdening staff with researching all your half-baked or three-quarter-baked last-minute proposals. And your repeated violations of the Brown Act and basic norms doesn't help either. But as Mary pointed out, it's really logic that, the bureaucracy is growing. I mean, you're employing more and more people on these silly research tasks. And by the way, you're also assigning some so much that they're having problems doing all their assignments. But, it's like...
Thank you. We'll now hear from the individual in person. I'll ask you to please state your name for the record.
Yes, Dr. Critical Truth Bay. And forgot I signed up for this, yes, so government core functions. Just want to remind you that we, the people, elect you. You work for the people, not the other way around. And whatever the functions are, to make sure that you put the youth first, lived experience first, Doesn't matter what department that you're in. The budget, usually LA County is like 48 billion. It's like a little state, but the other counties, to regulate and have the people involved. And so I want to let you know that this system, as we know it, in 2025 will no longer be the same. So please be prepared, prepare our youth. And I teach policy and legislation to the youth, so which is why I am very adamant on how this system works for the people, by the people. With that being said, thank you again.
Thank you. Now resume the individuals that requested to speak by phone. Start with the next caller.
I signed up. I'm here.
Mark,
I had a green slip. I'm actually for, in support.
I don't have a speaker slip for you for item 30.
That's weird, because I definitely signed up. Anyway.
Pam, this is a yes. Let's look at the actions forced upon the people without their vote. During this pandemic, the county spent $1 billion and people still died, and their freedom and God-given rights were robbed from them. This is a sanctuary county to traffic unborn children to be murdered by abortion arising from anywhere. Change the definition of woman to include men. Completely obliterated women by the label of birthing person. Ongoing support of open borders for the invasion into America, and no consideration for the missing children trafficked to America by evil people and our federal government. Rhetoric causing division among the people in this county based on skin color. Falsely claiming lack of housing causes homelessness. Keeping marginalized communities marginalized. Pushing more gun laws. By the way, Tara, if given the opportunity, would you confiscate Kamala's and Tim's guns? All these actions have strayed from the model and away from the core of the function of this county government. Thanks, Jim, for being awake and attempting to get this board back on track for the people.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Consuelo. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's important, and unfortunately, they're not elected. To the people who are under the impression that these people are elected, they are selected. That is another thing we have to come to grips on, and it's just really, gosh. Keeping up, we're on 30, right? Okay. So, yeah, it's just, so sad. What scares the political pawns more than anything is people refusing to hand over their consent. Whether you vote one way or the other, win or lose, you are handing your consent to the system. Remove your consent to this illegitimate government. It's doing nothing for the people. We need a new system. It needs to burn all the way down.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
The name is Gambler here, and I was talking to someone, so give me 1 minute to go ahead and get my bearings. But, you should really take a look at Julian Brown. Seriously, that dude is friggin' amazing. 21 years old, African-American, basically fixing the global problem. But, you guys want to ignore his ass and dig up holes. What are we talking about? Could you remind me? Hello?
Justin, we're on item 30.
Isn't this off topic? And what is that?
The agenda is available online for you to look at. The title is Back to Basics, a Review County Government Core Services.
Oh, yeah, you guys are doing terrible. I don't trust you with anything, like right now. You guys are basing things off of disabilities rather than working, actually knowing how to do the job. Like, how can I trust?
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Truth, back to basics should entail 3 minutes to speak every item, the ability to pull every item, No censorship by the chair, which includes telling people they can't mention staff. Actively seeking community input before approving any project. Having meetings outside of early normal working hours. Lunch breaks longer than 30 minutes. No more forcing people to get undressed for metal detectors and x-ray machines to enter a publicly funded building. Having certain supervisors waste over $41,000 a month on private security. Supervisors intentionally looking down while people speak. People not having to say their names over and over again when they go to speak. The dais on equal ground with speakers. An end to racist DEI. And Tara not rolling her eyes after Jim speaks. Yes, all governments need to go back to basics, far and away from faux dictatorships to get back to the Constitution. Think locally, act locally. Yes, an audit of the job you supervisors have been doing on meeting the basics is needed. Except people have been letting you know every 2 weeks for 4 years, and you all continue to fail. Not a single crumb for our tax dollars on issues that actually matter to the average.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes, and I want to say because of the change in law that Mayor Todd Gloria put through, now the County of San Diego is now responsible for housing the homeless and the poor in San Diego, within the city of San Diego also now. So that now housing the poor and the mentally ill, of course, is your core responsibility now. So please make sure that you acknowledge that homelessness is now your problem. Of course, you could work with the city with that, but you have money available for it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. I brought this item forward for a couple of reasons. First, the public relies on the county every day to deliver on what I refer to as core functions. These are mostly public-facing services that directly impact the day-to-day lives of many, if not most of us, who live in the county. Examples being maintaining our roads, conducting food safety inspections, issuing building permits, providing in-home services for aging parents, or ensuring neighborhoods are safe from crime, among many, many other essential services. And with the scope of the county continue to expand, whether it's creating new offices, financing outside consultants or studies, adopting new ordinances and adding additional regulations, I just want to ensure that we're still able to maintain excellent day-to-day customer service levels to the public. Second, we've got a new CAO, and under her new leadership team, we've also got a lot of new department heads. I think it's probably a good time for this type of review. It's not a witch hunt or anything like that, or to poke holes at anything. Basically, what are we doing good, and what do we need improvements on? We actually have a potential deficit coming next year as well. So, if there's things we're excelling at, how can we apply those practices across the entire county? If there are things we're struggling with, how can the board support staff or help make improvements? So I'm not asking to reinvent the wheel. Most of the departments are already tracking this type of information through performance measures or other similar metrics. I'm not just looking for busy work, but what I want to see is, are we serving the public that we're supposed to be serving? Are we getting back to them soon enough? Are we getting back with phone calls? I know in the coroner's office, we have some delays there. I know in some other areas, we're doing very well. So adapting and expanding the county government to address pressing issues has noble intentions, but we also have to remain focused on the everyday needs of residents and businesses that rely on the county to deliver on the basics. So for this reasons, I'm asking my colleagues to support and direct a review to be able to come back in 180 days on our ability to maintain high-quality frontline service levels across the county's core functions as detailed in the agenda item. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve item 30.
And Chairwoman Vargas, that motion fails due to the lack of a second. We'll now move on to item number 32, which is entitled Adopt a Resolution in Support of Proposition 35 and Waive Board Policy A72. We have 12 requests to speak on this item, 4 in person and 8 requesting to speak by phone. Also note that we received 21 e-comments, 20 in favor and 1 in opposition. Any individuals that requested to speak on item 32 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with those in favor of this item. As your name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it's your turn to speak at the podium. Again, because we have 10 or more speakers on this item, your comments will be limited to 1 minute, so please keep your comments to 1 minute, and please state your name for the audio record. I'd like to invite forward Judith Voss, Chris Roberts, and Kat Tessero. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Kat and Chris are not here today. I said good morning earlier, but good afternoon, Chair Vargas and the Board of Supervisors. My name is Judy Voss. I'm the Public Affairs Manager from Planned Parenthood Action Fund of the Pacific Southwest. We are in full support of Prop 35 and are asking for you to vote yes and adopt this resolution brought forward by the Chair. Over 300 organizations support Prop 35, including Planned Parenthood affiliates of California, United Farm Workers, community health clinics, and both the California Democratic and Republican parties. At Planned Parenthood, our providers, including doctors, medical assistants, and community health workers, know firsthand how essential this proposition is. Medi-Cal patients make up 1/3 of our state, and half of our children are on Medi-Cal in California. 1 in 5 hospitals are at risk of closure in our state, and we know these closures disproportionately impact Medi-Cal patients. We must act now with urgency and address the needs of our most vulnerable community members. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite for the speaker in opposition, Mark. Please come forward. Mark, please come forward.
Mark, 1 minute is totally absurd, so I'm not even going to take the time to pull my phone out and tell you. But first of all, there's only 2 things that I believe it was Nora who recommended. One was that they waive board policy A72. Well, that's basic Brown Act and protocol for these meetings. So the very fact you have to waive that is a disgrace. I don't know what you're doing wrong, but it's really, really a disgrace that you have to waive the protocol for public meetings for the public. Maybe you didn't give us enough information in time, or you're doing something shiesty that you're even asking for that. And secondly, people can look up the entire report. I don't have time to cite. The only argument against I saw was by KPBS. So it put in Prop 35 argument against KPBS. And by the way, Jim, the fact that no Democrat would vote to keep our core functions is just a total indictment of them. Absurd.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. We'll start with our first caller.
Hi, my name is Kira Piggies, calling in support of Prop 35 on behalf of Planned Parenthood Action Fund of the Pacific Southwest. As mentioned, more than 15 million and 1/3 of the state relies on Medi-Cal, and 90% of Planned Parenthood's patients are reliant on Medi-Cal. Healthcare organizations who accept Medi-Cal patients currently receive lower reimbursement rates, and we end up taking on the cost. And so Prop 35 would ensure that this is covered, and we would like you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller. And the next caller is Consuelo. Your device might be muted.
Yep, it was. Sorry about that. Okay, so Consuelo, to the scripted callers, the shill callers, do you realize that Planned Parenthood was created to literally kill off black people, black babies?
Can you please focus on the topic, Consuelo?
I'm focusing, Nora. Shut up.
Stop supporting Planned Parenthood if black lives really matter.
Nora.
So the item
losing your
before you is
voice.
adopt resolution in support of Proposition 35. Please address the item that you're speaking to.
Okay, got it. One more thing I just wanted to add, you're losing your voice because of all the lies that you spew and all the bad that you do.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Truth, the MTO tax to prop up the failing socialist Medi-Cal government health care program. Prop 35 is supposed to put a state bureaucracy in charge of all the money. What could go wrong? Remember the state's handling of billions of tax dollars to homelessness. Nothing to show other than a 25% increase of homelessness in this county. Planned Parenthood supports this government takeover of tax dollars. Talk about impropriety and a conflict of interest for Tara, Nora, and Monica to vote on this when they're all endorsed by Planned Parenthood. No wonder they don't want to be audited and transparent. Is this extended tax going to fund abortions? Don't forget, illegal migrants are now eligible for the American-funded Socialist Medi-Cal program. This item says that this tax may raise $7 to $8 billion a year, but the county's voter pamphlet says it's actually $2 to $5 billion. Who's lying? It also says that it will actually cost the state $1 to $2 billion a year to operate. It's a tax that keeps on taxing. Quit wasting tax dollars and meeting time on a dying socialist healthcare system and go to the campaign bat on the streets with your own money. And Andrew, can you read my last speech? I don't want to lose my voice either. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. As a healthcare advocate for over 30 years before becoming a supervisor, I understand firsthand the importance of increasing Medi-Cal reimbursement rates. And so I'm really proud to bring this proposition forward so that our board could take an opportunity to really support it, because one of the things that is really important, that is having a huge impact on the access to care, is the barriers that it creates in terms of the Medi-Cal reimbursement rates for providers. Raising reimbursement rates was a top concern for me prior to becoming a supervisor, and it continues to be, as this is one of the biggest ways that many of our folks are not able to get services. And so what Prop 35 does is allows us to have billions of healthcare dollars set to expire in 2026. It guarantees crucial funding for patient care without raising taxes. It protects healthcare dollars from being diverted from non-health purposes. And it ensures steady and reliable support for Medi-Cal and other essential health services, especially for our most vulnerable communities. The proposition invests in a broad range of services, from primary care to mental health emergency responses and specialty care, reaching to millions of Californians, including the 15 million on Medi-Cal. Within the county of San Diego, 932,585 individuals are Medi-Cal recipients, and out of those, 311,000 are children under the age of 18. Over 44% of Medi-Cal recipients in San Diego are Hispanic, and those are 0 to 17 and 25 to 34, also the highest groups to receive Medi-Cal. With Prop 35, 99% of the funds will go directly to patient care, capping administrative costs at just 1%, and then requiring independent audits to ensure transparency and oversight, which is why over 300 groups are supporting this across the state. With that, I'm proud to make a motion to adopt the resolution to support Prop 35. Thank you. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing this forward. It's obviously quite important. I've been talking for a long time about Medi-Cal, and our board took action back in March to take a look at how we can increase reimbursement rates to improve access and quality of care throughout San Diego County. That evaluation continues, and I'm hopeful we're going to have actionable recommendation from the county staff early next year. Prop 35 aligns with these efforts. Access to healthcare depends on these provider payments, because when providers are paid for their services, they can continue delivering care. Prop 35 aims to strengthen payments for Medi-Cal services by using an existing tax on managed care plans, a tax they imposed on themselves because they recognize the benefits. The state can secure a permanent dedicated revenue stream to boost Medi-Cal payments. This can mean better access to primary and specialty care, emergency services, mental health support, and for over 15 million Californians, including low-income families, seniors, and people living with disabilities, access to health care.
Supporting Prop 35 is a step towards a healthier, more equitable California and, by association, a more healthy and equitable San Diego County. Thanks. So second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and no further discussion, please vote.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
Thank you. Can you go ahead and read the next one? Okay, I'll do it. Okay. All right, with that, we'll move on to board committee updates. Each meeting, we ask each of our colleagues to provide brief updates on report in progress, pertinent information. Do any of my colleagues have any updates? Yep. I have some updates, but my voice is killing me, so I'm not going to do anything anymore. With that, I'm going to go ahead and I'll just share them on my social media. With that, we will now resume with non-agenda public comment. And Clerk, can you please call the remainder of the public?
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 13 remaining requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 2 in person and 11 requesting to speak by phone. For those that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. Begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite forward allegedly Audra and Luke Slywaker. I've called your name, please come forward. Not seeing any movement in the chamber, we'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We will begin with our first caller. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Barbara Gordon. As someone who works with young people, I wanted to remind the board that e-cigarette remains a concern among our young people. As the new school year has begun, it's a perfect time to strengthen the city's tobacco retail license ordinance, as it can play a significant role in reducing teen tobacco use through several mechanisms. Data shows that 60% of young people acquire their e-cigarettes through social sources, followed by 43% of retail sources. A strong regulatory framework will help ensure retailers comply with the law prohibiting the sale of tobacco products to minors. This includes regular inspections, penalty for violations, making it more difficult for teens to access these products. Requiring mandatory training for employees on responsible tobacco sale practices will also help further prevent underage sales. Reducing the number of tobacco retailers in community can reduce the overall availability of tobacco products. Fewer outlets can make it harder for our teens to find places to buy tobacco. Licensing program can include community involvement and reporting mechanisms allowing local residents to repeat suspected violations. Setting standards and enforcing rules through tobacco retail licensing can effectively curb the illegal sale of tobacco products to minors and reduce teen tobacco use. Again, I hope this board will consider strengthening their tobacco retail ordinance. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Megan Stewart, and as someone who has worked with youth, I would like to highlight that as marijuana products become increasingly accessible in the county, deeply concerning trends are presenting themselves. A recent study by the Center for Injury Research and Policy revealed a drastic 80% increase in calls to poison centers across the country for children exposed to Delta-8 THC, a compound similar to Delta-9 THC, which is found in marijuana. This trend is especially troubling because many of these cases involve young children accidentally ingesting THC products disguised as harmless gummies, brownies, or candies. These products are often attractively packaged, making them highly appealing to children who consume them unknowingly, leading to dangerous overdoses. In addition to the risks of accidental ingestion, youth marijuana use is rising. Studies show that with increased availability, teenagers are turning to marijuana at higher rates, often perceiving it as a safe drug. This normalization contributes to developmental and mental health risks, as adolescents' brains are particularly vulnerable to the effects of THC. Early and frequent use of marijuana has been linked to cognitive decline, memory problems, and a higher likelihood of addiction. The commercialization of marijuana only fuels this trend by sending the wrong message that it is harmless and acceptable for widespread use. We must put the well-being of our youth first. The commercialization of marijuana is having devastating impacts, and nothing can justify the damage we are seeing. Acting now is essential to protecting our children and preventing further harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hey, Gambler here. I'm calling because I would really, really appreciate it if you guys attend Audra's event. She worked extremely hard to go ahead and do it, the traffic event, the event talking about, the illegal migrant problem and, things associated with it. The least thing you could do is, see what she's trying to do. And to help you guys out with that decision, if you guys attend that meeting, I swear to God I will not go because of the restraining order. So you could go ahead and screw me over by not having me go by attending that meeting. I would really appreciate you guys going to that meeting and supporting, people who live in our county and the great work that she is doing. Regardless if you agree with it or not, at least having a different point of view would be a very, very good thing to have. On top of that, you guys screwing everyone over, especially me, and, karma's a bitch. And, hey, I didn't mind being in that cell, but I thought about how you guys are going to be able to handle it, and I don't think you guys could handle it. So I really, really recommend you looking into the voter fraud issue, going to see her event, and then stop horses from dying. Like, do all three these things, and maybe you could go ahead and avoid jail when all this shit starts crumbling around you. I did what I could to seal your fate to the election, and I think I was quite successful on that, to the point that Michael Vu quit because he wants no part of the election. He doesn't want that, so he chose to sue you. It's not.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a public health educator and member of my planning group. Today, I'd like to address Proposition 36 and thank Supervisor Desmond for recognizing the importance of keeping our communities safe. He stated, without safety, we don't have a functioning society. Prop 36 addresses the Homeless, Drug Addiction, and Theft Reduction Act, as well as alternatives to incarceration. Our county is suffering from organized crime, drug use, and homelessness. Currently, under Prop 47, consequences for committing these crimes have been significantly weakened and law enforcement officers' hands are tied. Last week, I attended a planning group and was frightened by the police report. The officer stated that just in the past month, they have seen a threefold increase in stolen cars, an alarming increase in calls related to domestic disturbances, and 26 hit-and-run incidences. The officer stated that not in one area of crime has there been a decrease. Criminals know that they can get away with committing crimes, and because of it, our neighborhoods are not safe. Drug abuse is rampant, and the consequences do not include solid treatment plans. I urge this board to vote to support Proposition 36, close loopholes in the law to stop repeat offenders, create tougher penalties, incentivize people to get the help they need, and offer alternatives to incarceration, such as mandated treatment. Please consider your support and help protect the neighborhoods and land we currently have before there are no safe neighborhoods in San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon. This is Peggy Walker. I am to support Supervisor Desmond's choice in supporting Prop 36, and those of you who fail to do so have shattered our faith in what you say you want. By rejecting Prop 36, you rejected the health, safety, and welfare of residents in support of criminals. Major law enforcement agencies support Prop 36 because it is, at last, a bill that would give law enforcement back some control, rightly penalize repeat offenders of illicit fentanyl drug dealing, those guilty of repeated retail theft, and also, importantly, help get homeless drug addicts into treatment. We will not solve homeless addiction without pressing treatment, nor right the wrongs perpetrated against business people robbed of their living by uncontrolled theft, nor rid our county of repeated fentanyl traffickers, including those who do so with a loaded gun and enlist vulnerable juveniles, without penalties beyond misdemeanors. Repeat illicit fentanyl dealers deserve stiffer penalties. San Diego's border is the #1 entry for illicit fentanyl into the U.S., the leading cause of death of those 18 to 34. It is 50 times stronger than heroin, an amount smaller than a raindrop can kill. And data shows overdose rates higher among Black and Hispanic communities. You should be taking every step to restore law, order, and safety, not coddle criminals. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Thank you so much, Justin. So I had to leave the board meeting because I'm down here at the Ultra Star Cinema's Hazard Center location, where this Thursday, October 24th, there's going to be a premiere starting at 6 p.m. for the documentary that Ryan Matta and J.J. Carroll have brought forward. It's called What is Treason? #Invaded. Jim Desmond is actually a part of it. And I asked him and Joel to come. I told them I'd give them each a couple of tickets, and they are evidently busy when I actually asked Jim weeks ago. And then as soon as he got busy, he decided that they would let me know that he has another engagement. But I encourage people to get tickets now for this documentary premiere. It's going to be happening this Thursday, the 24th at 6 p.m. And you can go to X and follow me at Eye of the Storm SB and find out more to buy tickets. You can also Google Ticket Spice, What is Treason, and it will come up. But I encourage people to get their tickets now because this will be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see what's actually happening on the border, the invasion that we are funding that is destroying our nation. And that's obviously why, a Nora and a Tara and Monica would most likely not come. But the extended invitation goes to you guys as well. I will give you 2 tickets if you do show up. On Thursday at 6 p.m. here, there's going to be a red carpet as well as Q&A with J.J. Carroll. He will be the featured guest. He's a Border Patrol agent for 24 years that has now retired. He's from San Diego, and he lays out exactly what is happening on our border. It's important for you guys to see that, so I encourage people to get their tickets now. It's going to be an amazing experience and something that you won't want to miss. They already have What is Treason #Trafficked out that is talking about all of the child trafficking that's going on. I encourage you guys to see that as well. If you go to thisistreason.com, you can find out more. You can also use my discount code AUDRA15 if you're going to buy them online. But I encourage you guys to come this Thursday, October 24th at 6 p.m. at the Ultra Star Cinema Hazard Center location to see the documentary.
Thank you. For the record, that speaker was Audra. That concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this afternoon. We'll now move on to item 33, which are closed session matters for the board's consideration. There are 25 closed session matters that I'll be showing up on the screen for the individuals that have requested to speak on this item. Individuals that have requested to speak on the closed session matters must provide comments related to these matters. Otherwise, your comments will be considered off topic. For closed session, we have Just a moment here. We have 4 requests to speak on closed session matters. Also note for the record that we received 5 e-comments, 4 of those in favor. All individuals are requesting to speak by phone. For those that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. Again, I'll ask you to keep your comments to one or more of the closed session matters listed on the screen. We'll give the callers a moment to dial in. And we'll begin with our first caller.
Hey, Truth, just reading these cases could take over 2 minutes. You think I should test that? Most of these are against the county. Kelly Martinez, Mayday, Tony Ray, Dina Cruz, Correctional Healthcare Partners, NAFCare Inc., John Montgomery, and several deputies and medical staff for the continued negligence in the county jail. Case A is Scott Smith in the estate of Jacob Smith versus county, plus Lisa Hayes versus the county. Case B is Whitney Antrim versus the county. Case C, estate of Michael Wilson versus the county. Case D, estate of Dominic McCoy versus the county. Case E, estate of Raymond Vogelman versus the county. Case F is Omar Moreno Arroyo versus the county. Case G is Jennifer Smith versus the county. Case J is Rob Boseman versus the county. Case K is Alexis Ann Barnaba versus the county. Case L is Roger Falsfinder versus the county. Case M is the estate of Lonnie Rupert versus the county. Case N is the estate of Abdiel Sarabia Hernandez versus the county. Case O is Cecilia Bach versus the county. Case P is the estate of William Hayden Shuck versus the county. Case Q is Beverly Alandrari versus the county. Case R is the estate of Viana Granillo versus the county. Case S is the estate of Aaron Bonin versus the county. Case T is the estate of Rosalie Bardolacci versus the county. Case U is the estate of Matthew Settles versus the county. And Case V is Marilyn Morton versus the county. Man, you guys are racking it up. It's horrible. I don't even like reading that. In Case H, anticipated litigation. I might come back to that. Case Y is the performance evaluation of county and council. Claudia, I believe. Judging by these 23 or more cases, you're probably going to be working overtime, big time tonight. Tonight, I don't know how long it's going to go. And anticipated litigation, just for racking up these lawsuits, you guys should be sued again. Does that make any sense? Can we make it 33 lawsuits a day by chance? Quit making me talk so much. Thank you. Have a good day and night. Good luck on your closed sessions.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from the next caller.
Guys are on a record roll of just having litigation out the yin-yangs. You guys love that, don't you? Right? And it's so funny because it's like, how many more could you possibly have? You have the whole alphabet of them going on here. And so speaking of employee evaluations, I would like to say that you guys are doing a horrible job. You should actually all have your pay be cut until you can start to, comply with the Constitution and not just be in bed with the corporation, making sure that you are actually doing what you took an oath to do. But do you guys even know what you took an oath to do? I don't think so. But it's interesting because it's always, the anticipated litigation that we had in the beginning of the morning at 8 a.m. for your special little closed session. Now we got a buttload of cases here at the end, and that's just going to continue, and it's very, very sad. So you guys need to start course correcting and mitigating all of these things because it is costing the people a lot of money that could actually go toward the funding of something good, right? But why would you do that? That's not your job, right? Oh, man, imagine if it was. What a great place San Diego County could actually be if you were doing things that were actually bettering the community instead of little by little by little tearing it to shreds, destroying people's lives, and making sure that we are in our 15-minute cities, especially with your climate action plan. Like I said, Satan is so proud of you guys, and it smells like sulfur even out here. I'm not even near you guys, but it's coming through the phone. It's like smell of phone sulfur. It's crazy. But, yeah, good on you guys. I mean, maybe one day we won't have litigation, but, yeah, right, you guys love spending the people's money, even if it's due to your negligence. It doesn't really matter how you spend it as long as you do, right? what about your Slurpees? You guys love those, so I mean, maybe we need to take your funds. That's why you guys should actually be defunded.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment in the closed session matters.
Thank you. That concludes the business before the board today. We do not have any adjournments. So with that, the session is adjourned, and we'll now proceed to closed session.
The board will now recess into closed session to consider those matters listed under item 33 on today's regular agenda. If there are any reportable actions that will be reported out during the land use session of this meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024.